I would like to buy a drink for all the gentlemen in the house.
This must give you a lot of satisfaction, buddy. It does.
Vintage Hollywood will forever be remembered for its timeless charm and legendary performances from icons whose influence continues to echo through the ages.
Oh, Tom's got you marked, Vic.
I was talking to Frank.
Like a bleeding organ.
I was talking to Frank, wasn't I?
But behind the dazzling lights and red carpets lies a much darker truth.
Security officer, huh? Always screening everybody. Only who screens you?
Hollywood has never been a place for the weak, and for those unable to handle the pressures of fame or its absence, many turn to the bottle for solace.
No, last night I called to tell you that I was coming, but there was no one at home.
In today's feature, we're revealing a list of 13 of the most notorious alcoholics in Hollywood history. Some of these names might surprise you, and tragically, a few of them didn't survive the grip of their addiction. Let's dive in. First on our list is English actor Oliver Reed. Known for his piercing blue eyes and powerful on-screen presence, Reed gained fame through films like The Trap, Bill Sikes, and Oliver. He was even ranked the 5th most popular box office star in 1971. His talent was undeniable, commanding, intense, and captivating. But being under the constant gaze of the public meant his private struggles weren't hidden for long. Reed was infamous for his drinking habits. Author Robert Sellers chronicled his story in the book Hellraisers, The Life and Inebriated Times of Richard Burton, Peter O'Toole, Richard Harris, and Oliver Reed, revealing how Reed once consumed a shocking 100 pints of beer in a single day. Sellers dubbed the 4 actors the greatest hellraisers to ever walk, stagger, or crawl into a pub, painting a vivid picture of just how deeply alcohol was woven into their lives. For Reed, the party never really stopped, even when it should have. During a break from filming Gladiator in 1999, he drank heavily at a bar in Valletta, Malta, reportedly downing half a bottle of whiskey, 12 rum shots, 8 pints of lager, and several cognacs. That same night, he got into an arm wrestling match with 5 young Navy sailors. Sadly, Reed collapsed shortly after and, despite being rushed to the hospital, was pronounced dead. His portrayal of Proximo in Gladiator earned him a posthumous BAFTA for Best Supporting Actor. Next is the charming yet troubled Australian star Errol Flynn. Behind his swashbuckling roles and irresistible charm was a man who succumbed to Hollywood's darker temptations: alcohol, women, and drugs. Flynn's social life revolved around drinking, which fueled his romances, friendships, and frequent bar fights. He was once even caught stealing a police badge. Flynn's circle of drinking companions included Hollywood royalty like John Barrymore, Ava Gardner, David Niven, Humphrey Bogart, and Frank Sinatra. He was especially fond of champagne and would carry French wine on travels to avoid going without. Toward the end of his life, vodka became his drink of choice, so much so that he was consuming an entire bottle daily. When banned from drinking on set, he resorted to injecting vodka into oranges just to keep the buzz going. Unsurprisingly, his health took a massive hit. His once handsome features became bloated, and on October 14, 1959, Flynn died of a heart attack at just 50 years old. During his autopsy, doctors were stunned that he had managed to live as long as he did, given the years of damage he had inflicted on his body. Another tragic figure was John Barrymore, a member of the illustrious Barrymore family. Alcohol didn't just affect him, it haunted his entire lineage. Many now only remember him as a washed-up drunk, but once, he was considered one of the greatest actors of his generation. Barrymore's battle with alcohol began early. Raised by an alcoholic father and largely cared for by his grandmother, he began sneaking sips of her guests' leftover wine while still a child. When his grandmother passed away, his drinking escalated, and by age 14, he admitted to a doctor that he was already a full-fledged alcoholic. Despite his personal struggles, Barrymore's talent shone. He brought charm and wit to stage performances, even pulling off a famously inebriated version of Hamlet's soliloquy while seated. an act that was initially praised as a creative twist until Barrymore admitted he simply couldn't stand up. Later in life, his dependency on alcohol became so overwhelming that studios stopped casting him. He was often hired only to play drunks, as seen in his final film, Playmates, in 1941. Barrymore died on May 19, 1942, in the middle of a radio recording of Romeo and Juliet. He collapsed and was rushed to Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital, where he passed from liver cirrhosis, kidney failure, and complications from pneumonia. As heartbreaking as it may be, the stunning American actress Rita Hayworth, one of the brightest stars of Hollywood's golden era, also finds herself on this unfortunate list of Hollywood's worst alcoholics. Behind her radiant beauty and on-screen magnetism was a woman enduring deep personal struggles. From a young age, Hayworth was pushed into the world of dance, which eventually caught the attention of Fox Film Corporation executive Winfield Sheehan. That early exposure led her to a string of minor roles that slowly paved her way to stardom, but not without sacrifice. Due to her Spanish heritage, she was typecast into roles as the exotic dancer. In an effort to break free from this box, she altered her appearance, bleaching her hair and undergoing electrolysis to raise her hairline, aiming for a more American look. Her transformation worked, and soon she was one of the most in-demand actresses in Hollywood. Dubbed the Love Goddess by the press, she became the most iconic pin-up girl of World War II. Ironically, despite that title, her love life was far from glamorous. Time and again, she found herself in relationships with men who sought control or who exploited her vulnerabilities. Though she appeared successful, Hayworth lived a deeply lonely life. Misunderstood and isolated, she had no one she truly trusted. Her second husband, filmmaker Orson Welles, noted signs of alcoholism during their marriage, but didn't initially believe it was a serious issue. Unfortunately, her daughter Yasmin Aga Khan witnessed firsthand the heartbreaking truth. Over time, Hayworth's drinking intensified, and she eventually suffered a breakdown that landed her in the hospital. For years, her erratic behavior was assumed to be the result of alcoholism. It wasn't until much later that her condition was correctly identified as Alzheimer's disease, a diagnosis made in 1980, years after her symptoms had begun. Her family had initially believed she was suffering from alcohol-related dementia. By the time the truth came out, Hayworth had already endured 2 decades of confusion and suffering. She passed away at age 68, her life cut short by complications from the disease. Next on the list is another infamous drinker, Richard Burton, the legendary Welsh actor known as much for his voice and talent as for his tempestuous personal life. In the 1950s, he was hailed as one of the greatest Shakespearean actors of his generation and was often spoken of as the heir to Laurence Olivier. Unfortunately, his promising career didn't quite reach those heights, derailed largely by his severe drinking habits. Burton's struggle with alcoholism followed him throughout adulthood. According to biographer Robert Sellers, Burton was known to consume up to 3 or 4 bottles of hard liquor each day. His drinking nearly killed him during the filming of The Klansman, where he had to be hospitalized in Santa Monica to be dried out. On set, many of his scenes were shot with him either sitting or lying down, as he could barely stand. He later confessed to a co-star that he had no memory of making the movie at all. In a desperate attempt to control his addiction, Burton even tried taking Antabuse, a drug designed to make drinking unbearable. Still, his battle with alcohol took its toll on every part of his life, including his volatile relationship with Elizabeth Taylor, which he believed was ultimately destroyed by his drinking. By the time he reached 41, Burton's health was in serious decline. He was limping in his mid-40s and struggled with a host of illnesses including cirrhosis, dermatitis, arthritis, and an enlarged kidney. His long war with alcohol ended in tragedy. He died at 58 from an intracerebral hemorrhage. His talent dimmed far too soon. Next on the list of notorious drinkers from Hollywood is William Claude Dukenfield, more famously known as W.C. Fields. This American actor, comedian, and writer gained fame first as a silent film juggler, later becoming known for his signature raspy voice and grandiose vocabulary. Ironically, although many of his characters were known to enjoy a drink, Fields himself didn't develop a real taste for alcohol until he began to feel the isolation brought on by constant travel. Eventually, he kept a supply in his dressing room and began drinking more regularly after stepping away from his juggling career. One of his most iconic roles as an on-screen drunk was Professor Henry R. Quayle in the 1933 comedy International House, where he played a beer-loving aviator, a role that eerily mirrored his own life later on. Fields often filmed scenes under the influence, yet his drunken performances somehow added a unique charm to his characters, endearing him further to audiences. Tragically, his career gradually declined, and he spent the last 22 months of his life at a sanitarium in California, passing away on Christmas Day at the age of 66. Another tragic story belongs to multi-award-winning actor William Holden, who perhaps had one of the most heartbreaking endings. With accolades such as an Academy Award for Best Actor and a Primetime Emmy under his belt, Holden was once at the top of Hollywood. However, by the 1960s, his career momentum slowed as new talent entered the scene, and he turned increasingly to alcohol. Holden had long been known in the industry for his drinking habits, yet he continued to pursue his passion for acting up until his death. On November 12, 1981, Holden suffered a fatal fall, cutting his head and bleeding out while intoxicated. The coroner's report stated that he had slipped on a rug in his apartment, a tragic and lonely end for a once brilliant star. Montgomery Clift, one of the most striking and soulful actors of his time, is also remembered for his struggles with alcohol. A four-time Academy Award nominee and a pioneer of method acting, Clift was admired for his emotional depth on screen. Unfortunately, a devastating car accident changed everything. After attending a party at Elizabeth Taylor's house, Clift crashed on his way home and was found by Taylor herself, bleeding and trapped under his dashboard. Although he returned to acting just 2 months later, Clift never fully recovered. The pain from his injuries, coupled with the pressures of his changing appearance, drove him to drink and abuse drugs. His life ended prematurely at the age of 45, with a heart attack ultimately claiming him. However, it was clear his substance abuse had taken a serious toll. Another heartbreaking tale is that of Wizard of Oz star Judy Garland. Despite her success and fame, she endured immense personal suffering from a young age. Constant pressure from Hollywood executives led her to believe she wasn't attractive enough, forcing her into unhealthy habits and extreme makeovers. In response, she sought solace in alcohol and prescription drugs, forming a cycle of dependency that lasted her whole life. On June 22, 1969, Garland's new husband, Mickey Deans, found her unresponsive. She had passed away from an accidental barbiturate overdose at just 47 years old. A specialist later said she had been living on borrowed time due to her physical state. The gifted performer Jack Cassidy is another name that cannot be left out. A man of many talents, acting, singing, and directing, Cassidy earned a Tony Award, a Grammy, and several Emmy nominations. Yet beneath the surface, he struggled with both bipolar disorder and alcoholism. His son later shared concerns about his father's increasing dependence on alcohol. On December 11, 1976, Cassidy died in a horrific fire after falling asleep on his couch with a lit cigarette. The flames consumed his apartment, and his body was only identified through dental records and a family crest ring he wore. His remains were later cremated and scattered in the Pacific Ocean. Gail Russell, often called the Hedy Lamarr of Santa Monica, was another beauty who suffered a tragic end due to alcohol. Her stunning looks landed her a Paramount contract at 18, and she quickly found success. However, nervousness on set led her to try alcohol on the advice of a makeup artist, and that one sip became a crutch. By 1950, she was widely known for her drinking problem. Though she tried to quit at times, the cycle continued. At age 36, she died of liver damage caused by acute and chronic alcoholism. Her neighbors discovered her lifeless body beside an empty vodka bottle, with many more strewn around her apartment. Marie Prevost, a star of the silent film era, also met a sorrowful fate. Known for roles in The Marriage Circle, Three Women, and Kiss Me Again, she found herself cast aside after Warner Brothers let her go. The deaths of her mother and the collapse of her marriage added to her depression. She began binge eating and drinking, which caused her to gain weight and lose roles. Her drinking eventually killed her. On January 21, 1937, at the age of 40, she died of acute alcoholism with only $300 to her name. Her passing led to the establishment of the Motion Picture and Television Country House and Hospital. Lastly, we have the legendary Jackie Gleason. A celebrated actor, comedian, and composer, Gleason was adored for his humor. Yet behind the scenes, his life was filled with pain. His father abandoned him, and his brother died young. Gleason never denied his love for alcohol. In fact, he once said, "I'm not an alcoholic, I'm a drunk." He frequently performed drunk, but his incredible talent always won out. Unfortunately, the drinking worsened over time, making him short-tempered and aggressive. He remained active in both music and film until his death on June 24, 1987. Ultimately, it was colon cancer that took his life at age 71.
Involving the deaths of legendary actor Gene Hackman and his wife.
The shocking death of actor Gene Hackman and his wife. They were discovered inside their home in Santa Fe on Wednesday after a neighbor called police.
There was a gentleman that was doing some pest control work, had gone to the Hackman residence. He noticed they weren't home.
The courtroom was gripped by silence as the verdict was announced.
Let's get you back into court now, where the publicist for Gene Hackman is describing how private the actor and his wife were.
Gene Hackman's daughter, once locked in a battle over her share of his immense fortune, now faces a future she never anticipated. Was she truly involved in the mysterious circumstances surrounding her father's death?
Seeing the moment, officers, at times with guns drawn, checked every room of the couple's Santa Fe, New Mexico home, making the grim discovery.
Or is this yet another tragic case of suspicion spinning wildly out of control? As new and disturbing evidence emerges and legal experts weigh in, the case takes an unsettling turn. The truth, it seems, is far more chilling than anyone could have predicted. Stick around, because what comes next will completely change how you see this story. Gene Hackman was a powerhouse of talent, known for his dedication to his craft and his unforgettable performances. But away from the spotlight and the accolades, Hackman struggled with something far more personal: his relationship with his children. While fans celebrated his on-screen presence, his family often felt the absence of the man behind the roles. Hackman had 3 children: Christopher, Elizabeth, and Leslie, all from his first marriage to Faye Maltese during the 1960s. Back then, he was still a struggling actor, trying to break into a tough and unforgiving industry. The family lived in a cramped New York apartment where daily life was marked by financial hardship. The apartment lacked basic amenities like hot water and heating, and it was Faye who carried the burden of raising the kids while Hackman chased stardom. When his big break came with Bonnie and Clyde in 1967, fame brought both fortune and distance. The more successful Hackman became, the less present he was in his family's life. Constantly away on film shoots, sometimes for months, he left his children without the steady presence of a father. The emotional gap widened over time, a rift he would later acknowledge in a 2011 interview with GQ. "I lost touch with my son in terms of advice early on," he admitted. "It was very tough to be gone for 3 months and then come home and start bossing him around." The weight of his career success loomed heavily over his children's lives. In a 2000 interview with the Irish Independent, Hackman reflected on how fame impacted his family. "It's tough being the child of a celebrity," he said. "I couldn't always be there when they were growing up, and living in California, my success was always hanging over them." Despite the accolades and wealth, Hackman carried deep guilt over the sacrifices his family had to make. His marriage to Faye eventually dissolved in 1986, the strain too great to overcome. His relationship with his son Christopher, in particular, suffered. At times, they drifted so far apart that communication nearly ceased altogether. It was a painful reality for the man who so often portrayed strong, commanding figures on screen. Still, Hackman wasn't one to shy away from accountability. In 1991, he married concert pianist Betsy Arakawa, who played a key role in encouraging him to repair the fractured ties with his children. With her support, he began to rebuild the bridges burned by years of distance and ambition. Reports suggest that their home became a welcoming space for healing and reconnection. By 2020, sources close to the family indicated that Hackman had significantly improved his relationship with his grown children and even his grandchildren. Though he couldn't recover the time lost, he found a sense of peace in the moments they were able to share. Tragedy struck in 2025. Hackman and Betsy were discovered deceased in their New Mexico home. Betsy had succumbed to hantavirus, while Hackman died of heart disease, with Alzheimer's listed as a contributing factor. The loss sent shockwaves through Hollywood, reminding fans of the fleeting nature of life, even for its most enduring stars. As condolences poured in, attention quickly turned to the puzzling details surrounding Hackman's death and the fate of his $80 million estate. Was everything as straightforward as it appeared, or were there hidden layers yet to be uncovered? Now, shocking new developments in the ongoing investigation into Hackman's death have come to light. Though initially attributed to natural causes, murmurs of foul play have begun to circulate. Authorities are now said to be conducting a deeper inquiry, one that includes reviewing medical files, phone records, and security footage. While no solid evidence has emerged so far, insiders claim the investigation is still very much active. One particularly startling twist involves Hackman's youngest daughter, Leslie. Her communications and phone activity are reportedly under scrutiny as part of the probe. Born in 1966, Leslie Ann Hackman has kept her life largely private, steering clear of the public spotlight. Very little is known about her current occupation or place of residence. Following her father's death, Leslie expressed disbelief and concern, saying, "I think I'm very anxious to find out what happened, and I just don't know how long they had been deceased." Authorities are reportedly examining her interactions with Hackman in the days leading up to his passing, searching for any inconsistencies or warning signs. While the investigation's exact scope remains under wraps, speculation about Leslie's involvement has only intensified the media frenzy. Was she simply caught in a web of tragic coincidence? Or is there more to her father's final days than meets the eye? Family, friends, and confidants have been quick to dismiss the rumors, labeling them a sensationalized attempt to spin a narrative out of grief. Yet others point to long-standing tension between Hackman and his children as a factor that cannot be ignored. Could those old emotional wounds have played a part in the somber final chapter of Gene Hackman's life? As forensic teams continue their work and authorities sift through every detail, the public waits, uneasy and intrigued. Hackman's legacy as a legendary actor is secure, but what's being uncovered about his final days could reshape how he's remembered. Adding another layer of complexity is Hackman's will, which has shocked not only the public, but also his own children. Hidden within the legal filings are revelations that further illuminate the difficult dynamics he had with his family. Though best known for his roles in The French Connection, Unforgiven, and The Royal Tenenbaums, Hackman quietly built a fortune through shrewd real estate investments as well as acting. But the true drama may be unfolding after his death, where personal wounds, legal questions, and family rifts converge in a story no Hollywood writer could have scripted. Gene Hackman's primary residence, a sprawling estate in Santa Fe, New Mexico, was where he lived with his wife, Betsy Arakawa, until their deaths. Valued in the millions, the estate was part of Hackman's meticulously managed financial portfolio, which also included multiple real estate properties and investment accounts. However, what has caught many off guard is the unexpected complexity of his will, raising questions about the future of his wealth and his relationship with his children. According to court filings from the First Judicial District Court of New Mexico, obtained by Business Insider, Hackman left his entire estate to his wife, Betsy Arakawa Hackman, as the successor trustee of the Gene Hackman Living Trust. The will, originally drafted in 2005, stated, "I give my entire estate to Betsy Arakawa Hackman as the successor trustee of the Gene Hackman Living Trust under trust agreement dated September 22, 1995, as amended and restated from time to time, most recently on the same date as this will." This essentially tasked her with overseeing the execution of the trust, the full details of which remain private unless legally challenged. Trust and estate attorney Lawrence D. Mandelker, who is not involved in the case, explained that this setup was simply a way of transferring assets into a trust, ensuring both privacy and discretion. Another estate attorney, Jason Coe, described it as a pour-over will, a method often used to keep estate matters out of public record. What surprised many, however, was how Hackman's 3 children from his previous marriage, Christopher Hackman, Elizabeth Jean Hackman, and Leslie Ann Allen, were only briefly mentioned in the will, with no specific inheritance or bequests named. Legal experts have noted that while the children might still be included in the trust, unless the documents are contested, those details will remain hidden. As Coe emphasized, the use of such a structure does not necessarily reflect whether the children were intended as beneficiaries. A particularly thorny complication emerged from Betsy Arakawa Hackman's own will, which included a highly specific clause. According to Business Insider, her will stipulated that if she died before Hackman, her estate would be transferred to the Gene Hackman Living Trust. However, if he died first, her estate was to be donated to charity. The critical clause in her will stated that no one would be considered to have survived her if they died within 90 days of her passing. Tragically, this clause was triggered. Betsy, 65, died approximately a week before Hackman, 95. Her cause of death was identified as hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. Hackman, who suffered from heart disease and Alzheimer's, passed away shortly afterward. Because his death occurred within the 90-day window, the will legally considered him to have predeceased her, redirecting her entire estate to charity instead of to him. Mandelker noted the unusual outcome, saying, "Even though he was alive when she died, according to this will, he's considered to have predeceased her, so all of her property is going to go to charity." This unexpected result has fueled speculation over whether Hackman's children will receive anything at all, or if the entirety of the estate will remain protected within the trust. The couple's emphasis on privacy only adds to the mystery. According to court documents filed by Julia L. Peters, chief counsel at Avalon Trust investment firm and the current representative of Hackman's estate, both Hackman and his wife took deliberate and proactive measures to safeguard their privacy, keeping the trust's contents out of public view. As the legal process continues, the question looms. Did Hackman intentionally structure his estate to limit his children's inheritance, or did a series of legal technicalities derail his original intentions? Gene Hackman's death has sparked more than just mourning. It's ignited a high-stakes legal battle over his estimated $80 million estate. Reports suggest his son Christopher has already retained California trust and estate attorney Andrew M. Katzenstein, indicating a legal challenge is underway. Their strained relationship over the years could further complicate the case. Rumors suggest that Hackman's daughters, Elizabeth and Leslie, may also be preparing legal action. Leslie, now 58, told the Daily Mail that while she hadn't spoken to her father for a few weeks before his death, Their relationship was normal and good. Still, her recent steps hint that she's reconsidering his final wishes. Among the three siblings, Leslie is reportedly the most vocal about claiming her share of the inheritance, vowing not to back down. If reports are accurate, both daughters may soon join their brother in court. Meanwhile, the public remains sharply divided. Online forums are buzzing with opinions. Some criticize the children's entitlement, citing their apparently distant relationship with their father. One commenter pointed out, "3 children, and it took authorities a week to find them? It better not go to them." Others strongly believe that Hackman's fortune rightfully belongs to his family. "The charity would be absolutely disgusting to take that money and not give it to his children," one Instagram user posted. As the debate between legal process and personal sentiment intensifies, the world watches closely to see how this inheritance battle will unfold. Hackman's legacy continues to stir controversy. Whether the conflict ends in a quiet settlement or drags into a lengthy courtroom showdown, it's evident that the actor's final arrangements left behind more than just a celebrated Hollywood career. They've sparked a whirlwind of legal and emotional chaos. The tragic deaths of Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa have taken a disturbing turn as authorities delve deeper into the circumstances surrounding their passing. Newly released body camera footage from police offers a sobering look at the scene, while forensic analysis and witness interviews continue to fuel speculation, especially amid rumors of possible foul play. Notably, Hackman's daughter Leslie is reportedly under investigation, adding yet another twist to the case. Police were dispatched to the couple's Santa Fe residence last month after concerned employees reported their prolonged absence. Footage from officers' body cams captured the raw grief of those close to the couple. One maintenance worker broke down, saying through tears, "He was just a regular guy, and she was a sweetheart." The footage has only intensified public interest in what really transpired during the couple's final days. Although both deaths have been officially ruled as due to natural causes, the sequence of events has raised serious questions. Investigators are now combing through security footage from Hackman's home to piece together the final moments. One haunting detail was the discovery of their deceased dog, believed to have died from dehydration and starvation. The fact that their pets were left unattended for several days has led some to wonder whether anyone in their circle noticed their declining health and failed to step in. 2 surviving dogs were later rescued, with police contacting Hackman's daughter Elizabeth to facilitate their adoption. "I knew Gene and Betsy. They took their dogs to Santa Fe trails. I'm here to help, but I can't adopt them," said a friend named Joseph. "Thank you, Joseph," Elizabeth replied, her voice heavy with emotion. As the investigation unfolds, neighbors and friends have come forward with insights into the couple's final days. Some remember Arakawa becoming increasingly withdrawn, while others noticed Hackman had stopped his usual daily walks. "We used to speak weekly," one worker noted. Then suddenly that stopped, further suggesting something was off before their deaths. Despite the mounting inheritance dispute, the criminal investigation remains law enforcement's top priority. Authorities are now reviewing call logs, interviewing individuals who last communicated with the couple, and examining surveillance footage. They are also scrutinizing the behavior and financial actions of Leslie Hackman, who remains under close watch. Rumors suggest a growing body of evidence may implicate Leslie, with investigators allegedly focusing on her recent financial dealings and movements. If sufficient proof surfaces, Leslie could face criminal charges, and depending on the outcome, even sentencing. While officials have been tight-lipped, legal analysts warn that any manipulation of the events surrounding Hackman's death could carry grave consequences. The public remains deeply divided. Some believe Leslie is being unfairly targeted due to the ongoing inheritance drama, while others insist that, if involved, she must be held accountable. With Hackman's $80 million estate at the center of the conflict, and the bulk of it destined for a charitable trust, his children face a difficult legal path if they hope to challenge his final wishes. Legal experts emphasize that unless the children can demonstrate that Hackman lacked mental capacity, possibly due to Alzheimer's, or was unduly influenced, courts are unlikely to overturn the will. Nevertheless, the high stakes involved almost guarantee prolonged litigation. The inquiry into Leslie Hackman's potential role in her father's death continues. While no formal charges have been filed, investigators are actively reviewing her financial records and surveillance data for signs of misconduct. Should prosecutors build a convincing case, Leslie could face harsh legal consequences, including possible imprisonment. Even if she is eventually cleared of wrongdoing, her involvement in the ongoing controversy could damage her claim to any inheritance. In estate disputes, even an unproven association with suspicious activity can cast doubt on a claimant's credibility, explained one estate law expert. If charges are eventually filed against Leslie, the situation could escalate dramatically, affecting not only her future but that of her siblings. For now, the Hackman family remains under intense public and legal scrutiny. Whether any of Hackman's children will ultimately inherit part of his estate or if the charitable trust will claim it, all is still up in the air. One thing is certain: the battle over Gene Hackman's legacy is far from over. In fact, it may have only just begun. If there's one thing the spotlight consistently demands from celebrities of all ages and backgrounds, it's the pressure to stay glamorous in the public eye. That's why it comes as no surprise that over 100 well-known stars have chosen to go under the knife in pursuit of beauty, or at least to preserve what they had. This is especially true for older generations of entertainers. While many aged gracefully, others weren't quite as fortunate, proving that surgery doesn't always lead to a better image. Just take a look at the 13 celebrities we're featuring today. Kicking off our list is the late iconic actress and comedian Joan Rivers. In her prime, Joan was both beautiful and bold, admired for her quick wit and sharp tongue. She broke barriers in comedy, especially as a woman in a male-dominated space, but like many in Hollywood, she felt the weight of expectation to stay young and attractive, which led her down a long road of cosmetic procedures. It began with a few enhancements here and there, but soon spiraled into a series of surgeries that left her almost unrecognizable. Joan openly admitted to receiving Botox, multiple nose jobs, eye tucks, liposuction, and countless facelifts. The natural charm she once radiated faded under the weight of repeated alterations. Ironically, the more procedures she had, the more she seemed to chase after the very beauty she was losing. While plastic surgery is more commonly associated with women in the industry, it's not exclusive to them. Country music legend Dolly Parton, for instance, has never been shy about the work she's had done. She once quipped in an interview with Saga magazine, "If something is bagging, sagging, or dragging, I'll tuck it, suck it, or pluck it." Dolly has confirmed using Botox, fillers, and Juvederm, but judging by her appearance, it's safe to say she's also had facelifts, a nose job, and breast implants over the years. She said that gaining weight once caused her to lose confidence, and surgery became her way of taking control. Compared to her early days, Dolly looks quite different now. But it's worth noting that aging plays a part too. That said, among stars who've had cosmetic work, Dolly is one of the few who still manages to look relatively natural. She credits this to her carefully chosen doctors and her restraint in not going overboard. She's well aware that a single botched procedure could destroy her image. Speaking of botched work, let's not forget the late Kenny Rogers. He's one of the few male artists who openly admitted to struggling with the pressure to stay young. At the height of his career, Kenny felt the need to compete with younger talent, and it led him to undergo surgery that left his once rugged face permanently altered. Before the operation, Kenny had soft eyes framed by relaxed brows, features that gave him a unique charm. Post-surgery, though, he appeared wide-eyed and permanently startled, with eyebrows that sat unnaturally high on his forehead. Strangely enough, this procedure was done by a well-known surgeon, but it turned out to be a major misstep. Many plastic surgery experts later pointed out that the changes made to his eyes and brow line drastically altered his look. The blepharoplasty, a procedure that removes excess skin around the eyelids, only added to the effect, making him look like he was in a constant state of surprise. In time, Kenny came to terms with his altered appearance, thanks in part to the support of his longtime friend, Dolly Parton. The two even joked about it publicly in his later years. Now, if we're diving into decades of cosmetic enhancement, you can't leave out the legendary Cher. With a career that spans generations, she's been candid about turning to surgery to maintain her youthful look. Place a photo from her early career next to one of her today, and the differences are undeniable. Starting with the most apparent change, her nose. Cher's rhinoplasty gave her a more refined and sculpted look, moving away from her original softer contours. She's also admitted to having several facelifts, something she says even her mother underwent. Cher's enhancements reportedly include teeth whitening, Botox, fillers, and breast augmentation. The most debated procedure, though, is her rumored rib removal, done, allegedly, to achieve her famously tiny waist. While Cher has denied this claim, speculation continues. Even with all the surgeries, there's still a trace of the charisma and allure that made her a star to begin with. Some might say her enhancements only help emphasize the persona she's carefully crafted over the years. Next on the list is another powerhouse woman, actress and activist Jane Fonda. Known for her stunning looks and strong opinions, Fonda has always been open about her journey with cosmetic procedures. Her transformation began early in her career with breast implants, and later in her 40s, she had her first facelift, motivated by the visible signs of aging. While she hasn't had as many surgeries as some others, the ones she did have still made a noticeable impact. Her second facelift came in her 70s, followed by an eye lift. Yet despite all this, Jane has always emphasized the importance of maintaining the features that define her identity. She's been careful not to overdo it, striking a balance between aging naturally and staying camera-ready. Her changes are subtle enough that they don't spark shock, but still noticeable enough to keep her in the spotlight for all the right reasons. And finally, we come to Jamie Lee Curtis. Though best known as a scream queen thanks to her Halloween legacy, Jamie's real-life horror came from something far more relatable: body image issues and public scrutiny. Jamie Lee Curtis, like others on this list, faced pressure to meet Hollywood's impossible beauty standards. She gave in to that pressure and underwent a series of cosmetic procedures. All it took was a rude comment from a cameraman about her puffy eyes to push her toward surgery. Curtis later opened up about her regrets, admitting she hated the experience and felt worse afterward. She experimented with Botox, liposuction, and changed her hair constantly. "It was humiliating," she once said, describing how the smell of chemicals at salons made her question what she was even doing it all for. Fortunately, the surgeries she did have were relatively mild, and her appearance hasn't drastically changed. Now older, Curtis embraces natural aging and has become a vocal advocate for body acceptance, finally at peace with her looks. Another actress who fell into the beauty trap was Melanie Griffith. Her breakout performance in Working Girl made her a star, but as she aged, she struggled with maintaining the image the industry demanded. In a 2017 interview with Porter magazine, she admitted to having work done, procedures she initially thought were minor until the backlash started. "I didn't realize until people began saying, 'Oh my God, what has she done?'" she recalled. Griffith was devastated. She sought out another doctor to undo the damage caused by her previous cosmetic enhancements. Her battle with addiction had also contributed to her appearance, but today she's focused on aging gracefully and living life fully. However, when it comes to botched surgeries, one figure stands out above the rest: Pete Burns, the frontman of Dead or Alive. Proof that men aren't immune to the pressures of appearance, Burns began altering his look in the 80s, starting with a nose job. The result? A nose so crooked he couldn't even wear glasses properly. Rather than stop there, it marked the beginning of an obsession that led to over 300 procedures. His story is infamous. He even appeared on Celebrity Botched Up Bodies, revealing the extent of his surgeries. One particularly devastating moment came in 2002 when a botched lip enhancement left his mouth swollen by 18 inches. Though he successfully sued the surgeon and received compensation, the damage had been done. Unlike most, Burns claimed his reasons weren't about vanity. "Plastic surgery is a matter of sanity, not vanity," he once said. In the 1980s, Jennifer Grey lit up the screen in Dirty Dancing, becoming America's sweetheart overnight. But her rising fame came to a halt after a decision that would haunt her: rhinoplasty. According to her memoir Out of the Corner, a plastic surgeon once questioned why she hadn't already fixed her nose. Though she never saw it as an issue, repeated comments convinced her otherwise. Eventually, she gave in. After the first surgery didn't turn out as expected, she underwent a second, only for it to make things worse. Her appearance changed so drastically that even close friends didn't recognize her anymore. Her career never recovered. Kim Novak, a classic Hollywood beauty, also took a wrong turn with cosmetic procedures. She had the kind of natural beauty that didn't need enhancement, yet online scrutiny in later years wore down her confidence. At the 2014 Oscars, her appearance shocked many. Dermal fillers had changed her face entirely. Novak later admitted that insecurity drove her to seek help from a doctor, hoping fat injections would improve her look without being as invasive as a facelift. Instead, the results left her with puffed cheeks and a squared jawline. "That was the stupidest thing I could have done," she told The Guardian, adding, "I didn't need it. My face was already round." And finally, Meg Ryan. Once a beloved actress of the 80s and 90s, she too made headlines for her appearance. But these days, she's creating buzz for something different, a long-awaited comeback. In 2023, Meg Ryan made her long-awaited return to the silver screen with the film What Happens Later. But it wasn't just her acting that caught public attention. It was her appearance that stirred up headlines. Although the actress has never publicly confirmed going under the knife, fans and online observers were quick to point out the significant changes in her face over the years. Once celebrated for her expressive eyes and soft, delicate features, Meg's new look left many puzzled and concerned. Social media, especially Twitter, buzzed with comments from disappointed fans who felt she may have been drawn into Hollywood's relentless beauty standards. Despite the speculation, Ryan has chosen not to address the rumors directly. However, celebrity facial plastic surgeon Dr. Sam Risk weighed in, suggesting that she might have undergone a poorly executed facelift. He noted an unusual horizontal tension around her mouth, something that wasn't present in her younger years, when her mouth appeared much smaller. Dr. Risk also speculated that fillers or fat injections may have been used to plump her cheeks. Regardless of these claims, Meg continues to deflect questions about her appearance. She often shifts the conversation toward more meaningful topics, emphasizing that society should focus less on how women age and more on their contributions. And to her credit, she seems to be doing just that, living her life with joy and intention. Next on our list is Priscilla Presley, the actress and businesswoman who first entered the public eye as Elvis Presley's wife. Over the years, Priscilla has undergone several cosmetic procedures to preserve her youthful appearance. These include a facelift, cheek fillers, Botox, lip line corrections, and a rhinoplasty. Looking at her early photos, it's clear she had a striking natural beauty, especially her captivating eyes, which she thankfully never altered. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for the rest of her face. Many now feel that excessive Botox treatments have taken away her ability to express emotion naturally, giving her a doll-like, frozen look. Initially, Priscilla saw positive results from her treatments. firmer, smoother skin that made her appear younger. But as she aged, the enhancements began to work against her, resulting in a swollen, unnatural appearance. That said, her nose job was considered a success, as it refined what had once been a bulkier feature. When some procedures failed to meet her expectations, she opted for corrective surgeries in hopes of achieving a more desirable look. Rounding off today's list is Joan Van Ark, the talented actress known for her role as Valene Ewing on Knots Landing. During the height of her career, she was a beloved TV star, but in more recent times, her appearance has drawn public concern. Many observers believe that the multiple facelifts she's undergone have drastically altered her facial structure, making her jaw and neck appear unnaturally tight, as if being pulled backward. Dr. Anthony Yoon, a respected plastic surgeon, speculated that Joan may have also had a brow lift and Botox, pointing to her smooth, wrinkle-free forehead. According to insiders, Joan has struggled with insecurities about her looks for years, insecurities that likely pushed her toward these cosmetic choices. Unfortunately, the results have only added her to the growing list of celebrities whose enhancements failed to deliver the desired effect. The takeaway? Just because someone has the money to alter their appearance doesn't mean they should. Aging is a natural part of life, and while cosmetic procedures can offer temporary results, they don't always come without regret. At the end of the day, it's your body and your decision. But sometimes, embracing who you are might just be the most beautiful choice you can make.
My time has just flown by. So what happened in the 80s, I think, stays in the 80s if that's okay with you. But here's the thing. I'm so happy for your upcoming retirement. I know you're on to better and better things. I'm cheering you on in your next chapter. Your legacy at KDKA is just that, a legacy, which I know will be a very tough act to follow. Congrats.
Oprah watching her best friend go to space.
Gayle King stepped onto the red carpet in a breathtaking white gown, sleek, elegant, and impossible to ignore. Cameras flashed in rapid succession, headlines followed within hours, and social media lit up with commentary.
You are officially an astronaut. How do you feel?
I still can't accept that word, but I will say I can't even believe what I saw. When somebody calls this a ride, this was not a ride.
As co-anchor of CBS Mornings, a best-selling author, and Oprah Winfrey's trusted confidant, Gayle looked radiant at the New York City premiere of a powerful new documentary.
We get to see the flight suit for the first time. I've not seen it I've seen a drawing, but I haven't seen the actual suit, so we'll have final fitting for that. I didn't know I had so many measurements on my body, so we'll see how that goes.
The film, a deeply moving exploration of Celine Dion's battle with a rare neurological illness. But that night, the conversation wasn't just about the documentary, or even her stunning ensemble. Something else had people talking, something unspoken. The real buzz centered around her transformation, specifically her noticeable weight loss. Yes, she looked incredible. Her hair cascaded in soft waves, her skin seemed to glow, and her gold heels shimmered beneath the lights. But the internet quickly turned speculative. Had she used Ozempic? Another injectable weight loss treatment? Especially after her close friend Oprah had recently opened up about her own experience with such medication. Gayle, uncharacteristically, remained silent. No confirmation, no denial. For someone known for her openness, whether discussing love, loss, politics, or aging, her refusal to comment felt pointed, almost intentional. That only fueled curiosity. She'd just graced the cover of Sports Illustrated's swimsuit edition, at age 69. While others her age were easing into retirement, Gayle was confidently striking poses on glossy pages, joking that she'd eaten a cheeseburger before the shoot and specifically requested tasteful cleavage. Still, she offered no clear explanation for her rapid transformation. Publicly, she credited a consistent workout regimen, 5 to 6 sessions a week, and said she'd never felt better. But some viewers sensed something deeper beneath the surface. Her ever-present smile appeared softer, more introspective, almost as if it was hiding something. That shift in tone wasn't entirely new. In May 2022, Gayle wrote a heartfelt essay about the importance of mental health conversations, not just during designated awareness months, but year-round. She spoke candidly about loss, about suicide, and about the quiet pain people carry behind composed exteriors. Her reflections on Cheslie Kryst, the former Miss USA who tragically died by suicide, were especially powerful. Gayle had spoken with Cheslie's mother, who shared a note her daughter had left. "Mom, you didn't do anything wrong. You did everything right." Gayle later said those words haunted her. As she told the story, it was clear it struck a nerve. She wasn't just reporting, she was feeling. She emphasized how easily suffering can be masked by smiles, and coming from someone who's spent decades performing under bright lights, that level of vulnerability was both startling and deeply moving. It left many wondering, was Gayle herself grappling with something she hadn't shared? Later that same year, she revealed on air that Oprah had been hospitalized with a severe stomach illness. "Dehydration," she said carefully, even joking that Oprah might be mad at her for revealing it. But behind the humor was a look of genuine concern. Suddenly, discussions about health began to feel more urgent. Soon after, people noticed subtle shifts in Gayle's public presence. She skipped red carpet events more frequently. Her appearances outside of CBS grew rare, and when she did show up, the physical transformation seemed more pronounced. Colleagues praised her discipline, her wellness, her dedication to fitness. She laughed along, attributing it all to clean eating, water, workouts, and Weight Watchers. But by early 2024, something had changed again. Her demeanor on air became more reflective. Her words are slower, more deliberate. At one point, she spoke about how difficult it is for public figures to admit they're struggling. She didn't say she was struggling, but something in her voice hinted that she understood. Then came the off-camera whispers, not from tabloids, but from insiders. Staff noticed her walking more slowly. Standing seemed to cause discomfort. Sometimes she paused longer than usual between segments. Then, for the first time in years, she quietly took a leave from CBS Mornings. Officially, it was a scheduled break, but insiders suggested otherwise. One producer mentioned she had broken down in tears during a commercial break. Another hinted at a serious medical diagnosis, news she hadn't yet chosen to share with the public. Neither CBS nor Gayle offered an official explanation. And that silence? It was louder than words. When she finally returned, something was different. She was still composed, still warm, still professional. But behind her polished exterior, there was a noticeable shift, a quiet weariness, a deeper calm. Throughout it all, one constant remained: Oprah. Their friendship, now nearly 50 years strong, wasn't built on fame or fortune. It began in the trenches of local news. Back in 1976, Gayle was a young production assistant at WJZ-TV in Baltimore, handling scripts, managing chaos behind the scenes. Oprah, just a few years older, was already anchoring the news at the same station. That modest Baltimore newsroom would become the birthplace of one of television's most enduring friendships. Their bond was forged in the quiet spaces, late-night talks, snowed-in weekends, heartfelt advice exchanged off-camera. As the years passed, their paths diverged. Gayle trained as a reporter in Washington, D.C., anchored in Kansas City and Hartford, while Oprah launched her empire from Chicago. But no matter how their careers soared, they never lost each other. And now, as Gayle faces this deeply personal chapter, she doesn't face it alone. When Oprah launched O, the Oprah magazine, in 1999, she didn't think twice. She brought Gayle on board as editor from the very start. More than a decade later, after Gayle's talk show on OWN came to an end in 2011, Oprah stood by her once again as she made the leap into the high-stakes world of national morning TV with CBS Mornings. But their connection wasn't built on business moves alone. It ran much deeper. They had weathered breakups, grieved losses, endured media storms, all side by side. To Gail's children, Kirby and Will, Oprah was more than a family friend. She was another mother figure. And for Oprah, Gail provided a kind of refuge, a place of calm outside the constant glare of fame. Over the years, the public remained curious. Some were simply interested, others pried. Was their bond purely platonic? Was there something more? In 2010, Oprah addressed the speculation in a heartfelt interview with Barbara Walters, calling Gail the sister she never had, a rare, once-in-a-lifetime friend. When the same question resurfaced in 2024, both women brushed it off with a familiar mix of humor and honesty. They didn't need to define it. What they shared transcended labels. In 2024, when Gail's striking transformation captured headlines, the internet buzzed with assumptions. Ozempic, Hollywood shortcuts, miracle diets. What most didn't realize, though, was that her changed appearance wasn't just cosmetic. It was the outward reflection of something far more serious, a health issue that demanded real change. Behind her signature poise, Gail was quietly navigating a new reality. And through it all, Oprah remained her anchor. They continued to appear together, smiling at premieres, attending charity galas, effortlessly bouncing off each other in interviews. But those watching closely noticed a subtle shift. Oprah's gaze now held a hint of protectiveness. Gail's confidence remained, but her voice sometimes revealed a softness, a quiet vulnerability. That June, Oprah herself was hospitalized after a severe stomach virus left her dangerously dehydrated. It was Gail who shared the news on air, calmly, sincerely. She admitted the situation had shaken her. Viewers felt the gravity of that moment, a dear friend holding space for another. What many didn't realize was that Gail was revealing more than concern for Oprah. In her tone, there was a mirror, reflecting her own fragility. Around the same time, CBS made a surprising and controversial decision. CBS Mornings would be moving from its iconic Times Square studio to a more modest location on Manhattan's West Side. For most anchors, it might have been a minor inconvenience, but for Gail, it hit deeper. It felt like a slight. She had just inked a one-year contract extension, committing to another season filled with corporate shakeups and shifting leadership. Yet no one had warned her about the studio downgrade. Her beloved office, meticulously curated over the years into a personal haven, was being taken away without a word, and she was furious, not because of ego, but because of principle. After decades of loyalty, through scandals, breaking stories, and countless early mornings, she deserved better than a quiet shuffle out of the spotlight. Behind closed doors, Gail didn't stay silent. She spoke up. She demanded to be treated with the respect she had earned. She wasn't a placeholder. She was a cornerstone. And Oprah? She was right there, backing her every step of the way. According to insiders, Gail made her message crystal clear. If CBS wanted her on board, they had to honor her not just as talent, but as a trailblazer, not just as a name on a contract, but as a woman who helped shape morning television. And Oprah, unwavering as ever, stood firmly beside her. Their friendship had always been powerful, not just because it lasted, but because it stood for something. Oprah often said that Gail celebrated her victories harder than she did herself, and Gail never hesitated to describe Oprah as the most generous person she'd ever known. When Oprah launched her own network, Gail went with her. When Gail accepted the challenge of network news, Oprah cheered from afar. And when the public speculated, criticized, or made jokes, neither woman flinched. They stayed the course, unshaken. Even during turbulent moments, like the fallout from Charlie Rose's exit or the criticism Gail faced after her interview with Lisa Leslie, they had each other's backs. Oprah never backed down, and Gail, with her grace and resilience, pressed on. But time was changing things. Oprah had begun hinting at slowing down. Gayle, too, had started to reconsider what mattered most. Health has a way of shifting priorities. It wasn't just about managing symptoms, it was about reimagining the future. Despite the glossy photo shoots, the designer heels, and the perfectly lit studio segments, Gayle was in transition. Her body was speaking to her, her spirit too. And for the first time in a long while, she had to ask herself, was it time to step away from CBS? The network certainly wasn't making the choice any easier. Ratings continued to lag behind their competitors. Executives were under pressure to slash $500 million from the budget. Morale inside the newsroom was low. Rumors swirled about exits, about layoffs, about what the future would even look like. And yet, in the midst of all that uncertainty, Gayle still knew how to command attention. It happened live on air, during a breezy segment with podcast host Alex Cooper. Known for her bold interview style, Cooper was caught off guard when Gayle turned the tables and asked a playfully provocative question about her marriage. The control room panicked. Producers scrambled to cut in, but Gayle wasn't being careless. She was being intentional. She was reminding everyone exactly who she was. From hard-hitting interviews with political figures to witty banter in lifestyle segments, Gayle had range. That viral moment? It wasn't a misstep. It was a move. A subtle reminder to the network and the audience that she was still the woman who knew how to make TV matter. Still, even as she kept up appearances, something was shifting behind the scenes. A quiet readiness, not to retire entirely, but to pivot. To embrace a new kind of chapter, one free from ratings pressure, studio politics, and 4 a.m. wake-up calls. And this time, her next adventure would be unlike anything she, or any journalist really, had ever done before. This spring, Gayle King is preparing to break new ground by leaving the ground entirely. At 70 years old, she's headed to space with Blue Origin as part of its first all-female crew. Joining her on this historic mission, pop icon Katy Perry, broadcast journalist Lauren Sanchez, NASA scientist Aisha Hassan, civil rights advocate Amanda Anduyan, and producer Kieran Flynn. The mission, known as NS-31, will propel the group past the Kármán line, 62 miles above Earth's surface, officially entering space. The rocket will climb at more than 3 times the speed of sound. Once it reaches its peak, the crew will unbuckle and experience weightlessness, floating in silence as they gaze down at the planet. It's more than a thrill ride. It's a milestone. Since Valentina Tereshkova's pioneering flight in 1963, no all-woman crew has taken part in a space mission like this. For Gayle, the symbolism runs deep. After decades spent telling the world's biggest stories, she's stepping into one herself. This time, she won't just report on history, she'll be a part of it. But not all of Gayle's most transformative journeys have happened far above the earth. Just a few months ago, Gayle's son, William Bumpus Jr., now 37, tied the knot with Elise Smith in what can only be described as a modern-day fairy tale. The venue, none other than Oprah Winfrey's home. Gayle, ever the proud mom, has joked for years that Will is her favorite son, a title that comes easy when you only have one, and she couldn't be happier to officially welcome Elise into the family. It wasn't just the setting that made the day magical, it was the little details. Will and Elise first met on the 2nd of the month, got engaged on the 2nd, and so, naturally, they chose June 2nd for the big day. As Gayle recounted the story on air, her joy was unmistakable. She lit up as photos rolled across the screen, glowing with pride. Oprah, ever the gracious host, kept the mood light by poking fun at the very affordable venue rates, eliciting laughter all around. Though the backdrop was breathtaking, it was a single sentence that stuck with Gayle most. During his vows, Will looked at Elise and said, "I know the man I am, but with you, I know the man I want to be." Those words left her stunned. overwhelmed in the best way. It was a moment that sent shivers through her. Watching her children forge their own paths while she stepped into a new chapter herself stirred a quiet, profound contentment within her. But even in the midst of these joyful milestones and career highs, something more complicated was quietly unfolding. Earlier this year, Gail was diagnosed with a medical condition, a private matter, not shared publicly, but one that shifted everything. It made her pause. It made her rethink. It made her prioritize. With her health newly in focus, uncertainty at CBS looming, and a deep desire to be present for her family, Gail began to feel a shift within herself. Not a total farewell to broadcasting, perhaps, but a growing clarity that the relentless pace, the 4 a.m. wake-ups, and the mounting pressures weren't sustainable anymore. That chapter might be closing. So when whispers began to spread about Gail possibly stepping down from CBS Mornings, the reaction was disbelief. Could she really be ready to go? For more than 10 years, she's been the calm in the storm, the familiar face we turn to whether the headlines bring heartache or humor. Yet, if she was preparing to move on, it was clear she'd do so on her own terms, with grace, intention, and the same quiet strength that's always defined her. This wasn't a retreat. It was a recalibration. From anchor to astronaut, from the desk to the stars, from the woman asking tough questions to the one finally asking herself the most important one of all. What kind of life do I want next? The answer is simple. A life centered on wellness. A life rich with laughter, home-cooked meals, slow mornings, and spontaneous joy. A life that still uplifts and inspires but doesn't demand she sacrifice herself to do it. As she readies for space travel, bonds with her new daughter-in-law, and reflects on her son's next chapter, Gail isn't just closing a door. She's opening a new one. She's not fading into the background. She's stepping into the light. That's the quiet truth underneath it all. Gail King isn't walking away from something falling apart. She's moving toward something more whole, something more spacious, something that finally lets her breathe. Caroline Leavitt had always thrived in the spotlight, until now. Standing before a wall of flashing cameras, her voice trembled. Her eyes shimmered with tears. The usual fire in her demeanor had softened. Something had changed. The press braced for impact. Was she about to announce a resignation, a personal crisis, or something no one could have predicted? Her ascent to the national stage was far from ordinary. She didn't come from a dynastic political family or follow a neatly curated route into power. Caroline was raised in a modest New Hampshire town where her parents ran an ice cream stand and sold used trucks. Small-town roots, but even then she was different, driven, loud when it mattered. By college, that early spark had turned into a wildfire. While classmates prepped for midterms, Caroline was penning sharp op-eds in defense of Trump. She launched her campus's first broadcasting club, not just to speak, but to be heard. And it worked. Her voice started carrying. The right people noticed. That momentum didn't slow. A Fox News internship opened the door to a coveted White House post under Kayleigh McEnany. Soon after, she climbed even higher, landing a role as communications director for Representative Elise Stefanik, a rising Republican heavyweight. In a space where young voices are often sidelined, Caroline made sure hers rang out loud and clear. But today, at that podium, she wasn't the unshakable figure we were used to. Something was different. Stripped of the usual armor, she was about to share something personal, something no one expected, about her husband. Her path had never been easy. When she first stepped up as White House press secretary, still glowing from her post-election win, the press pool didn't exactly erupt in applause. The youngest person to ever hold the role? Expectations were low. Critics figured she'd play it safe, stick to the script. Some even predicted a quick crash and burn. But when Caroline took the mic that first day, she blew those assumptions apart. Her debut press conference ran nearly 50 minutes. almost unheard of for a newcomer. But it wasn't the duration that grabbed attention. It was the delivery. She didn't sidestep tough questions. She didn't soften her language. She confronted the press head-on, calling out slanted narratives and leaving no doubt that she wasn't just keeping the seat warm, she was rewriting the rules. Even veteran journalist Peter Alexander came at her strong. She didn't blink. Her answers were sharp, confident, controlled. It wasn't by chance. She had studied media and politics at St. Anselm College and knew how they intertwined. That insight carried her through her early career, first as assistant press secretary under Trump, and then as national press secretary for his 2024 campaign. Caroline wasn't just surviving in high-stakes political chaos, she was owning it. But her real genius? It wasn't just in handling the press, it was in recognizing the media landscape had changed. Legacy news outlets were losing ground. Meanwhile, podcasters and independent influencers were building massive audiences. Caroline didn't resist the shift, she embraced it. Rather than chase the approval of traditional media, she took the administration's message directly to the places where real people were actually listening. Under her lead, digital creators suddenly found themselves at press briefings. Conservative influencers were being given the same access as CNN or the New York Times. Critics called it reckless. Caroline called it reality. "If millions have tuned out mainstream media," she said, "why keep pretending they haven't?" It worked. White House Communications Director Stephen Cheung even called her first briefing the most successful one ever. That declaration sent ripples through D.C. The old media playbook was officially obsolete. Still, Caroline stirred plenty of debate, and not just for her political tactics. Her personal life made headlines, too. She had married Nicholas Rio, a 59-year-old real estate tycoon, 32 years her senior. Online reaction was swift and brutal. Was it genuine? Was it opportunistic? Caroline didn't waste time responding. She kept her eyes on the bigger picture, until everything changed. July 13th, 2024. A Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. The crowd was electric until gunfire rang out. A shot hit the former president. The scene descended into chaos. The Secret Service swarmed. Blood, screams, confusion. The country was stunned. But for Caroline, the moment hit differently. She wasn't at the rally. She wasn't even in D.C. She was at home, holding her newborn son, just 3 days old. What had started as a routine evening shifted into something surreal. On her TV screen, the world was unraveling, and she was sitting there, clutching a new life in her arms. Then came the decision, one that most new mothers wouldn't dream of. She turned to her husband and said, "I have to go back." And she did. Just 4 days postpartum, she returned to the White House. Cameras flashing, questions flying. The nation looked on in disbelief. Her body was still recovering. Her baby was barely out of the hospital. But her reasoning was clear. "The president took a bullet for this country," she said. "The least I could do was return to the fight." Some hailed it as courage. Others called it insanity. But for Caroline, it was simple. Duty. To her, Trump's survival wasn't just a campaign twist. It was a rallying cry. A reminder that resilience isn't optional. If he could take a bullet and keep pushing forward, then what excuse did she have not to? But balancing press briefings and motherhood wasn't exactly seamless. Some days she felt unstoppable. Other days, she wondered if her baby would even recognize her face. Leaving him each morning? It broke her. "It's heartbreaking," she admitted. Still, she never slowed down. And what made that possible? Nicholas Rio. He wasn't loud about it. He didn't seek praise. But behind closed doors, he was the glue. While Caroline managed political chaos, Rio cared for their son, making bottles, changing diapers, calming cries. Thanks to his flexible career, he could be there. In every moment Caroline had to miss. The assassination attempt had rattled the entire nation, But for her, it was a wake-up call, a stark reminder of why she had chosen this path. It reminded her of why she sacrificed the comforts that most people take for granted, why giving up was never an option. So when she addressed the press just days after surviving one of the most harrowing political moments in recent history, it wasn't just about holding her ground. It was a reaffirmation of her commitment to the cause. But beneath that calm, poised exterior, something much more personal was brewing. Yes, she was managing the pressures of politics and motherhood, but what she was about to reveal about her husband would completely alter the narrative. In politics, every relationship gets scrutinized like a criminal investigation, and her marriage to Nicholas Rio? That had sparked a conversation of its own. Their relationship wasn't your typical power couple dynamic. It didn't begin in a think tank or at a strategic campaign meeting. Instead, they met at one of those high-pressure political events, full of handshakes, fake smiles, and everyone pretending their entire day didn't run on caffeine and ambition. By then, Caroline was already on the rise, polished, focused, and thriving under the spotlight. He, on the other hand, was a real estate mogul, extremely wealthy and completely uninterested in playing political games. He didn't do press, he didn't chase attention, and social media didn't even register on his radar. And yet, against all odds, something clicked. On paper, they seemed like an odd match. She was young, ambitious, and very much a creature of the digital age. He was 32 years older, allergic to social media, and didn't even have a Facebook account. In an age where influence is often measured in followers and likes, he had none of it. No Twitter, no LinkedIn, not even a personal Instagram. But while others saw a mismatch, they saw something different. Balance. She was bold, outspoken, always at the heart of the action. He preferred to observe, to listen, to support quietly from the sidelines. The public couldn't stop talking. The age gap wasn't just a footnote. It became a headline. The internet was ablaze. Some called her a gold digger. Others openly doubted the authenticity of their relationship. Every photo she shared with Rio became an open invitation for judgment. Is that your dad? Your husband looks old enough to be your grandfather. But she didn't blink. No lengthy rebuttals, no social media rants, just a quiet confidence. He's my #1 fan, the best father and the best man I've ever known, she posted once. The trolls couldn't shake her. They never could. While the world obsessed over their age gap, Caroline and Rio focused on what truly mattered, a life built with intention, away from the noise. No grand public displays of affection, no glossy magazine covers, just two people who knew what they had and cherished it. Even their engagement was refreshingly low-key. On Christmas Day in 2023 at home, he asked her to marry him. She said yes. That was the moment. The next day, she posted a single photo, Rio on one knee, the diamonds sparkling in the soft winter light. The best Christmas of my life. I get to marry the man of my dreams. No theatrics, just pure, unfiltered joy. Their wedding was no different. While other political couples threw lavish ceremonies that dominated the headlines, theirs was a quiet affair. No press, no exclusive photos, no anonymous leaks. She didn't make a big announcement. She simply updated her bio to say one word: wife. Marriage didn't slow them down. In fact, it seemed to fuel them. She stepped into one of Washington's most demanding jobs. He kept running his real estate empire as if nothing had changed. There were no memoirs, no interviews, no sudden bids for the spotlight as the political spouse. He stayed right where he preferred, in the background. But just because he remained out of the public eye didn't mean he wasn't vital. When Caroline made headlines by returning to work just 4 days after giving birth, the world was stunned. How could she possibly do that? They wondered. The answer was simple: Nicholas Rio. While she handled press briefings, he handled everything at home. She always referred to him as her rock, the man who gave tirelessly, never asked for recognition, and expected no applause. But what no one saw was what he sacrificed. He wasn't just the supportive figure quietly cheering her on in the background. There was so much more to his story. Nicholas Rio was never supposed to be in the spotlight. As Caroline made history as the youngest White House press secretary, he stayed out of it, just as he always had, content to remain in his element, the background. Everyone assumed he was simply another lucky rich guy who got his break. But Rio's past? Far from privileged. At 18, he was homeless. No family to turn to, no savings to fall back on, just a relentless determination to survive. While most his age were mapping out their college plans, he was focused on where he would sleep that night. But he didn't give up. He hustled. He started buying neglected properties in Hampton Beach, New Hampshire, places others wouldn't touch. He saw potential where others saw trash. By 2005, he owned 15 buildings, 70 rental units, and had earned a reputation for turning things around. His business, Rio Enterprises LLC, soon expanded across New England. His strategy was simple: find what others overlook, fix it up, never overextend. By the time his name was known, the wealth was already his. But real estate wasn't just about making money. It became his platform for something bigger. His properties became gathering places for conservative networks, quiet, strategic hubs where ideas replaced grandstanding. While others made noise, Rio made progress. And through it all, he kept his distance from the spotlight. He never sought accolades. Because it's truly powerful, they don't make noise. They pull strings in the shadows. While other moguls gave TED Talks and posted photos with their private jets, Nicholas Rio operated in the silence of the background, shifting the pieces on the chessboard. No fanfare, just results. And oddly enough, that made him even more intriguing. One of his properties, for instance, became more than just a lucrative investment. It transformed into a hub, a meeting space for conservative women, hosting influential Women for Trump events. But Rio wasn't your typical wealthy donor, sitting behind a desk in a plush office, writing checks from the comfort of his chair. He was methodical and strategic, ensuring that his success was meaningful. Unlike the billionaire class that flaunted their connections to politicians, Rio took a completely different path. No media appearances, no glossy magazine features, no polished Instagram posts aimed at impressing anyone. Online, it was as if he barely existed, and that absence was by design. For a long time, he stayed in the background, far from the media's gaze. But that changed the moment he married Caroline Levitt. The spotlight found him, though it was the last thing he wanted. Almost overnight, social media was flooded with commentary. Their age gap became a point of endless speculation. Some people saw it as calculated. Others couldn't believe it was real. Every photo Caroline posted with him became a battleground for online critics. But what the public failed to see was the foundation that underpinned their relationship: shared values, quiet loyalty, and an unwavering respect. Their home was never about appearances. It was about peace. When their son, Nicholas Robert, was born, Rio made a choice. He stepped away from his thriving empire, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. For a man who had built everything from the ground up, putting family first wasn't a sacrifice. It was instinct. Despite his best efforts to avoid the spotlight, the truth about Rio eventually emerged. And when Caroline finally revealed what he had been doing behind closed doors, even the most cynical political insiders were left in awe. For weeks, people had been asking the same question: how was she doing all of this? How was she managing the most demanding job of her life, raising a newborn, and staying composed under constant scrutiny? She'd returned to work just 4 days after giving birth. Some admired her determination, while others questioned whether it was sustainable. Then, during what seemed like another routine press briefing, something unexpected happened. Caroline, usually so composed, paused for a moment. Her voice softened slightly. I've been asked over and over how I'm balancing this job, motherhood, and everything in between, she said. The truth is, I couldn't have done any of this without my husband. That single sentence shifted the entire narrative. Suddenly, Rio was no longer just the mysterious figure lurking in the background. He became the foundation, the one who held everything together when no one was watching. The speculation about their relationship had gone on for so long, but no one had known the full story. Nicholas Rio wasn't just a real estate mogul or a quiet presence in the background. He was the person who made sure their world didn't fall apart under pressure. Before their son arrived, he had already made a decision. No press releases, no headlines, just a quiet shift in his life so Caroline could step into hers without hesitation. When I told Nicholas I wanted to go back to work right away, Caroline shared, he didn't even hesitate. He simply said, "We'll figure it out," and he meant it. She spoke candidly about the guilt she felt, the pain of leaving her son behind every morning. The weight of that decision was heavy, but each time it became overwhelming, Rio was there. Not with empty motivational speeches, but with his presence. Knowing that her son was with a father who had rearranged his entire life to be present, that was the key to making her career work. And just like that, the narrative changed. Nicholas Rio was no longer just the quiet older husband. He was the unsung hero, the hidden force behind her balance. Yes, he had built an empire, but his most valuable contribution wasn't in his wealth. It was in the quiet, consistent support he offered every day, expecting nothing in return. Then came the press conference that truly flipped the script. Caroline, known for her iron composure, became visibly emotional. She didn't speak about policy or politics. She spoke about partnership, about sacrifice. Caroline, known for her iron composure, became visibly emotional. She didn't speak about policy or politics. She spoke about partnership, about sacrifice. The media quickly jumped on it. Some criticized her for setting unrealistic standards for working mothers. Others praised her for breaking new ground and redefining what was possible. But regardless of the reaction, one thing was undeniable. Levitt and Rio had changed the conversation. They had demonstrated that, in a world obsessed with ambition and status, true success comes down to one thing: who is standing beside you when the cameras aren't rolling. And perhaps, just maybe, their story made others stop and rethink what real partnership truly looks like. Not every success story has a happy ending, especially in Hollywood. Some of the brightest stars emerge from modest beginnings with inspiring rags-to-riches tales, only to eventually fall from grace. Whether due to struggles with addiction, mental health issues, or poor financial decisions, some famous celebrities have shockingly ended up homeless. While a few have managed to rebuild and make a comeback, others face tragic endings. Keep watching to find out which celebrities lost everything and ended up on the streets. Margot Kidder. Margot Kidder was a Hollywood icon, best known for her role as Lois Lane in the Superman films. Her fame extended to her personal life, as she had relationships with high-profile figures like Richard Pryor and Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. So it was a major shock when she was found wandering the streets, suffering from schizophrenia and severe depression. Kidder ended up sleeping in cardboard boxes and in backyards across Los Angeles, with many spotting her looking disheveled, missing her front teeth and with her hair chopped off. This homeless period followed a manic episode in 1996, and she was later found by family and authorities living behind bushes in Glendale, California. While on the streets, she would ask strangers for cigarettes, and some people even offered her a night at a motel. Eventually, she was placed in a private psychiatric clinic where she began treatment. Kidder went on to become an advocate for mental health, stating, "We are all a breath away from mental illness, homelessness, all these things we tend to look down on." Erin Moran. Erin Moran became a household name at the age of 14 for her role as Joni Cunningham on Happy Days. However, after squandering her wealth, she ended up broke and homeless. Moran faced financial ruin and had her California home foreclosed in 2010. She and her husband had to live with his elderly mother in a trailer in Indiana, but the situation quickly deteriorated. One night after a drinking binge, Moran had a confrontation with her mother-in-law, who then kicked her out. After that, she bounced between motels, unable to find a stable place to stay. Tragically, Moran passed away, having struggled with addiction, and was found dead from a heroin overdose. Dana Plato. Dana Plato, another child star, faced a turbulent life after her time on the sitcom Different Strokes. Her struggles with homelessness began after the show ended, and it wasn't long before she tragically passed away from a drug overdose. Plato had been just 14 when she starred on the hit sitcom, but behind the scenes, she was already battling drug addiction. As the show wrapped, she became embroiled in scandals, with legal issues such as forging prescriptions and robbing a video store. She also faced jail time and went through several rehabilitation programs. In 1999, Plato was found living in motels in Oklahoma. She claimed to be sober, but shortly after, she passed away from a drug overdose, with her death being ruled as a suicide. The day before her death, she appeared on The Howard Stern Show, openly discussing her struggles with alcoholism and addiction. Many callers insulted her, which might have pushed her to her breaking point. Lonnie Wilson. Lonnie Wilson, a once successful model, is now homeless on Venice Beach due to her struggles with drug addiction and mental health issues. She rose to fame as a fitness model and was frequently featured in magazines. Her career reached its peak when she married Jeremy Jackson, a star from Baywatch. However, her meth addiction and mental health struggles sent her into a downward spiral, and she eventually found herself living on the streets. Wilson has publicly blamed her ex-husband Jackson for her troubles, alleging a violent relationship where he once tried to strangle her. She also claims that she cannot live indoors due to a strange sensitivity to electricity, having been allegedly electrocuted every day for a year. Whether this is true or an excuse for her addiction is uncertain, but it highlights the complex issues she's faced. MC Hammer. MC Hammer, a hip-hop superstar, went from winning 3 Grammy Awards to losing everything and becoming homeless. In the 90s, he was a major force in the music scene with his catchy hits and signature moves like Hammer Time and his parachute pants. Hammer was everywhere, even in his own animated series, Hammerman. However, as music trends shifted and his popularity faded, he continued to live a lavish lifestyle. He spent millions on a 40,000-square-foot mansion, 17 cars, 2 helicopters, a private jet, and racehorses. Despite his declining fortunes, Hammer maintained a luxurious lifestyle and employed over 200 people. Eventually, he found himself $3 million in debt and owing over $800,000 in taxes. In the end, he sold his assets, but he managed to recover by downsizing, moving into a modest home, organizing concerts, and being more cautious with his spending and investments. Jan Michael Vincent, once a beloved Hollywood heartthrob, spiraled into homelessness due to a combination of substance abuse, violent behavior, and misfortune. Best known for his role in the hit TV show Airwolf, Vincent captivated audiences with his good looks and surfer physique. However, behind the scenes, his life was unraveling. Throughout the late 70s, he faced multiple arrests for cocaine possession, and during the mid-80s, he was also involved in bar fights and charged with felony assault and drunk driving. His addictions led to a string of devastating car accidents, one of which resulted in the amputation of his right leg. With his health deteriorating and career fading, Vincent lived in isolation in rural North Carolina and Mississippi before passing away at age 74. Leif Garrett rose to fame as a teen idol, but his fame was short-lived as drugs took over his life. He began using substances at just 14 years old. Before turning 18, he crashed his mother's Porsche while high, leaving his friend permanently paralyzed. The incident marked the beginning of a long battle with addiction. In 2001, he declared bankruptcy, listing only clothing, basic household items, and $350 in cash. His sole income was a $1,000 monthly allowance from his mother. With no home to call his own, Leaf found himself bouncing between jail and rehab. His dire situation was later referenced by Sharon Osbourne, who remarked, "Leaf is living under a bridge and saving a place for Justin Bieber." Mindy McCready had a promising career, but her life took a dark turn. The mother of two faced numerous personal struggles, including substance abuse and mental health issues. After a court ordered her into rehab, her boyfriend died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Just a month later, Mindy took her own life in the same location. Authorities discovered she had also shot and killed her dog before turning the gun on herself. One of the major triggers was learning that her children were going to be placed in the custody of her estranged mother. Her tragic story highlights how fame and mental illness can lead to devastating consequences. David Cassidy, former teen sensation. David Cassidy, known for The Partridge Family, eventually found himself in a downward spiral of alcoholism and financial troubles. Despite his early success, Cassidy's life was marred by DUI arrests in 2010, 2013, and 2014. Publicly admitting to his alcoholism, Cassidy's erratic behavior and legal woes continued to tarnish his legacy. As his fame faded, so did his fortune. He ended up homeless and struggling. His troubles included arrests for drug possession and soliciting prostitutes, and his personal life remained chaotic until the very end. Sugar Ray Williams. Even athletes aren't immune to financial collapse. Sugar Ray Williams, a former NBA captain of the New York Knicks, once enjoyed stardom and wealth, but by 2010 he was found living out of his Buick in Pompano Beach, Florida. Williams had played with the Celtics in the 1985 NBA Finals, yet found himself broke and homeless years later. Unlike many others, his downfall wasn't due to addiction. It was simply bad luck and poor post-retirement planning. He openly criticized the NBA for neglecting former players, stating, "Where's the loyalty and compassion for the ones who paved the way?" He passed away in 2013 from colon cancer. Bobby Driscoll. Once a Disney Child star and Academy Award winner for The Window, 1950, Bobby Driscoll's life ended in obscurity. Following a drug conviction and prison sentence, Driscoll struggled to reintegrate into society. Despite some minor acting roles, he never regained his former fame. Homeless and addicted, Driscoll was found dead in an abandoned New York building in 1968. His identity remained unknown for years, and he was buried in an unmarked grave on Hart Island. In a haunting interview, he once said, "I became a beatnik and a bum. I had no home." His death wasn't confirmed publicly until 1971. Iran the Blade. Barkley. Iran Barkley, a former boxing champion who earned over $5 million during his career, lost everything due to reckless spending and poor financial decisions. By 2010, he was homeless and sleeping on New York subway cars and in cheap motels. During his prime in the 80s and 90s, Barkley was a household name. But his decline was steep, ending in bankruptcy and isolation. After briefly living with his niece in public housing, he ended up back on the streets. Fortunately, with help from BronxWorks and the Ring 10 charity, Barkley turned things around. He eventually secured housing and began teaching boxing to underprivileged youth, finding new purpose in giving back. Natasha Lyonne. Natasha Lyonne was a major force in 1990s Hollywood, starring in cult favorites like But I'm a Cheerleader, Slums of Beverly Hills, and American Pie. However, her promising career took a downturn following legal troubles and battles with addiction. After being evicted from her apartment, she faced a period of homelessness. In 2001, she was arrested for a DUI and later checked into Beth Israel Hospital, where she received treatment for methadone dependence, a heart infection, hepatitis C, and a collapsed lung. Despite the hardships, Leon made a remarkable comeback. She earned acclaim for her role in Orange is the New Black and later co-created Russian Doll, which drew from her own life experiences. She also starred in the hit detective series Poker Face. Danny Bonaduce, known for The Partridge Family, endured a lifelong struggle with addiction. Despite early fame, substance abuse led him down a difficult road, including periods of homelessness. He frequently cycled through rehab as he attempted to stay sober. At one point, he was living in his car near the Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood, where he continued to greet fans and sign autographs, many unaware he was without a home. Reflecting on the surreal experience, he once said, "I was still famous, and people had no idea I lived behind the dumpster." Eventually, Bonaduce found stability, becoming a popular radio DJ in Seattle, though he later retired following health complications and brain surgery. Houston McTier. Even Olympic-level athletes can hit rock bottom. Houston McTier, once hailed as the fastest man alive, matched the world record for the 100-yard dash while still in high school. He overcame poverty in Florida, relocated to Los Angeles, and trained under legends like Muhammad Ali and Harold Smith. He graced the cover of Sports Illustrated in 1978 and qualified for the 1980 U.S. Olympic team, only to miss the Games due to the U.S. boycott. With his dreams dashed, McTier turned to drugs and eventually became homeless, living on Santa Monica Beach for several years in the 1980s. He survived thanks to places like the Claire Foundation, a local mission. Eventually, he turned his life around and married fellow sprinter Linda Haglund. Brett Butler, who earned a Golden Globe nomination for her role in Grace Under Fire, faced a downward spiral due to substance abuse. During her show's run, she fought a recurring drug addiction, spending significant time in rehab. She later left Hollywood and relocated to a rural farm in Georgia, where she lived with 15 pets. But her financial situation deteriorated, eventually landing her in a homeless shelter. In recent years, Butler has been trying to mount a comeback, reportedly developing a reality show based on her psychic abilities while performing stand-up comedy in downtown Los Angeles. Willie Ames, best known for 8 is Enough and Charles in Charge, Willie Ames suffered a stunning fall from grace after financial ruin. Once earning over $1 million a year, Ames lost his career, savings, family, and home. He spent time sleeping in parking garages and public parks, and even worked as a wilderness guide to get by. Reflecting on that time, he said, "I never dreamt it could happen that fast." Eventually, Ames got back on his feet. He became a licensed financial advisor and returned to acting and filmmaking, now splitting time between Vancouver and Los Angeles. Rocky Lockridge boxing champion Rocky Lockridge reached the top as a junior lightweight title holder. But following his retirement in 1992, he succumbed to addiction, which led to the loss of his family, fortune, and freedom. He served a prison sentence for burglary in 1997 and, upon release, lived on the streets of New Jersey for nearly a decade. A stroke left his body weakened, and years of substance abuse, combined with the physical toll of boxing, worsened his condition. Despite being a highly educated and successful athlete, Lockridge became a cautionary tale of the dangers of addiction and unmanaged health after fame fades. Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye, the iconic soul singer behind timeless tracks like What's Going On, Let's Get It On, and Sexual Healing, left an indelible mark on music. Yet, behind his artistic brilliance lay a deeply troubled personal life. Plagued by drug use, financial issues, and ongoing family conflict, especially with his father, Gaye often battled his own inner demons. Tragically, on April 1, 1984, just one day before his 45th birthday, he was shot and killed by his father during an argument. Though his life ended in heartbreak, Gaye's influence on music and social consciousness remains profound. Amanda Peterson. Amanda Peterson charmed audiences as Cindy Mancini in the 1987 teen classic Can't Buy Me Love, co-starring Patrick Dempsey. She quickly became a beloved figure in the 1980s pop culture scene. However, as her acting career faded, she withdrew from public life and struggled with addiction and mental health issues. Peterson died from an accidental drug overdose on July 3, 2015, just days shy of her 44th birthday. Her untimely death was a tragic reminder of the darker side of child stardom.
How Bruce Lee died?
They said it was a couple.
Yeah.
They said
Bruce Lee is universally recognized as the groundbreaking martial artist who transformed the global perception of Chinese martial arts. He was instrumental in embedding martial arts into mainstream cinema around the world.
What I'm still practicing now would lead to this to begin with.
Yet, in 1973, just as his star was about to shine on a global scale, Bruce Lee passed away suddenly at the age of 32. Leaving millions stunned. So what was it about Bruce's story that made his death seem so enigmatic? And what prompted his longtime friend, sparring partner, and fellow martial artist Chuck Norris, now 83, to finally share a long-kept truth? Let's explore the lesser-known story of Bruce Lee, the legend who left too soon. Born Lee Jun Fan on November 27, 1940 in San Francisco, California, Bruce came into the world during both the year and hour of the dragon, an auspicious start for someone destined for greatness. He was the fourth child in his family. His father, Lee Hoi Chuen, was a prominent Cantonese opera performer, while his mother, Grace Ho, had a mixed Chinese and German heritage. Although the family lived in Hong Kong, they were in San Francisco due to his father's opera tour through Chinatown. At the time of Bruce's birth, his father was performing in New York, so it was his mother who chose the name Bruce, a suggestion from her doctor, who believed a strong Anglo name might benefit the child later in life. Ironically, Bruce's father wasn't fond of the name and rarely used it while Bruce was growing up. Bruce entered the entertainment industry as a baby. At just 3 months old, he appeared in his first movie, Golden Gate Girl, as a stand-in for an American infant. By April 1941, the family had returned to Hong Kong, but their stability was short-lived. That December, Japan invaded Hong Kong, ushering in 4 years of wartime occupation. Despite the upheaval, Bruce continued acting. By age 9, he had already appeared alongside his father in 2 films, The Birth of Mankind, 1946, and The Kid, 1950. The latter marked Bruce's debut in a leading role, inspired by a comic book character of the same name. His parents insisted that acting must not interfere with his education. Bruce was enrolled at Tak Sun School and later attended LaSalle College, a Catholic institution. As he grew older, Bruce often played rebellious teens in films, a typecast that reflected some of his actual behavior. During his teenage years, Bruce got involved with a street gang and often found himself in fights. After one particularly violent encounter that left him injured, his parents decided he needed proper martial arts training. In 1953, a friend named William Cheung introduced him to the revered Wing Chun master Yip Man. Initially, Bruce was turned away due to a rule forbidding Chinese martial arts instruction to non-Chinese. His mixed-race background was the sticking point. However, Cheung persuaded Yip Man to reconsider, and Bruce was eventually accepted. Though he faced discrimination from fellow students, Bruce trained privately with Yip and alongside trusted peers like Cheung and Wang Shunlung. These sessions kept him out of further street trouble. Yip Man encouraged his students to enter official martial arts competitions as a constructive outlet. Around this period, Bruce also began struggling academically. In 1956, he transferred to St. Francis Xavier's College, where he met Brother Edward, the school's boxing coach. This marked Bruce's introduction to Western boxing. He took to it naturally. In 1958, Bruce won the Hong Kong School's boxing championship, defeating the reigning champ by knockout. His talents weren't limited to fighting. He also won a cha-cha dancing title and was known for his poetry and creative expression. Nevertheless, Bruce still found trouble. That same year, he fought on a rooftop in response to a challenge from students of the Choi Lee Foot Martial Arts School. In another altercation, he knocked out a boy's tooth during a street fight, prompting the victim's parents to involve the police. Bruce's mother had to take legal responsibility for the incident. His father never found out. Concerned for his safety and future, Bruce's mother looked for a way to remove him from Hong Kong. With his U.S. citizenship in play and his school performance lacking, it was decided Bruce would move back to the States. At 18, he left for America. By that time, he had already been in nearly 20 Hong Kong films. Bruce landed in San Francisco in 1959, staying first with his sister Agnes and close family friends. A few months later, he relocated to Seattle, where he resumed his education. To support himself, he worked as a waiter at Ruby Chow's restaurant. Ruby was the wife of a family friend. It was during this time that Bruce began teaching martial arts on the side. He refined his personal interpretation of Wing Chun and named it Jun Fan Gung Fu. Among his first students were Jesse Glover, a judo practitioner, and Taki Kimura. Both men would become lifelong friends and disciples. Eventually, Bruce opened his first martial arts school in Seattle, called the Lee Jun Fan Gung Fu Institute. After completing high school, Bruce earned his diploma from Edison Technical School. By 1961, he had enrolled at the University of Washington, studying drama while also taking courses in philosophy and psychology, subjects that deeply influenced his martial arts philosophy. 3 years into his university journey, Bruce left school and moved to Oakland. There, he lived with James Yim Lee, a respected martial artist who had made a name for himself in California. Together, they launched another Jun Fan martial arts studio in Oakland. It was also during this period that Bruce met and later married Linda Emery. As his influence expanded, Bruce opened more schools, including one in Los Angeles. It was James who introduced him to Ed Parker, a prominent American martial artist, an introduction that would change the course of Bruce's life. In 1964, Bruce Lee took center stage at the Long Beach International Karate Championships, thanks to an invitation from Ed Parker. His demonstration was nothing short of legendary. First, he amazed the crowd with fingertip push-ups, balancing only on his thumb and index finger. Then came the now iconic one-inch punch, a technique so powerful that it sent Bob Baker flying backward. Baker later admitted the blow was so intense, he had to take time off work due to severe chest pain. That same day also marked a pivotal first meeting between Bruce and Chuck Norris. Norris had just secured a tournament win when Bruce waved him over. The two quickly connected, talking for nearly 9 hours straight. They bonded over martial arts philosophy, despite their differing styles. That encounter sparked a lasting friendship. Over the next 2 years, Chuck trained under Bruce and would later say it was he who encouraged Bruce to incorporate high kicks into his repertoire, moves that would become signature elements in Bruce's films. Still, not everyone was taken by Bruce's confidence. His unapologetic attitude and strong opinions occasionally stirred tension in the martial arts community. One notable instance involved Wong Jack Man, a respected practitioner of Xing Yi Quan, Tai Chi, and Northern Shaolin, traditional Chinese disciplines with deep cultural roots. That same year, controversy erupted in Oakland's Chinatown. Community elders were upset that Bruce was teaching Chinese martial arts to non-Chinese students and demanded he stop. Bruce refused. To resolve the dispute, he proposed a challenge, a private fight with Wong. If Bruce lost, he would shut down his school. If he won, he would continue teaching freely, without interference. Wong, however, told a different story. According to him, the fight wasn't about racial boundaries, but about Bruce's boastful claim at a local theater that no one in San Francisco could beat him. Wong said he never agreed to Bruce's terms and held no prejudice against non-Chinese students. Bruce, on the other hand, dismissed the so-called list of disapproving Chinatown Sifus, suggesting Wong wasn't being entirely truthful. The match took place privately, witnessed by only 3 people: Linda Cadwell, Bruce's fiancée at the time, James Lee, and Tai Chi instructor William Chen. Accounts of the fight varied. Wong and Chen claimed it lasted 20 to 30 minutes, and that Bruce initiated the match by pretending to offer a handshake, then striking Wong in the eyes. Wong also accused Bruce of fighting with lethal intent and claimed he had an opportunity to kill Bruce but chose restraint to avoid legal consequences. Bruce's camp told a different version. Linda and James insisted the entire fight lasted just 3 minutes. In their account, Bruce quickly overpowered Wong, forcing him to the ground and asking, "Do you give up?" To which Wong replied yes. In a later interview, Bruce vaguely referenced his victory without naming Wong. Wong, knowing he was the unnamed opponent, published his side of the story in a Chinese-language newspaper, Pacific Weekly. He even challenged Bruce to a public rematch to clear the air, but Bruce never responded, likely because he had already won what mattered most to him: the right to teach anyone he wished. While martial arts remained his passion, Bruce also longed to return to acting. That opportunity surfaced again, ironically, thanks to another martial arts exhibition. Television producer William Dozier had seen Bruce's demonstration at Long Beach and offered him a screen test for a new show titled Number One Son, a spin-off concept centered around Charlie Chan's son. Although the pilot never aired, that same year Bruce celebrated a personal high point: the birth of his son, Brandon, in 1965. Later, Dozier cast Bruce as Kato in The Green Hornet, a television series adapted from a popular radio show. Initially, the directors pushed Bruce to use conventional American-style fighting on screen. Bruce resisted. He insisted on staying true to his martial arts roots and proved his point with action. His movements were so fast that the film crew struggled to capture them on camera, eventually asking him to slow down for the sake of visibility. The Green Hornet became the first American TV series to feature authentic Chinese martial arts. Airing from September 1966 to March 1967, the show ran for 26 episodes and introduced audiences to a style of fighting they'd never seen before. Bruce also reprised his role as Kato in 3 crossover episodes of Batman, which shared the same producer, Dozier. These appearances marked Bruce's successful return to American television and laid the foundation for what would soon become his meteoric rise. Back on American soil, having lived abroad since infancy, Bruce began forming deep connections with others in the industry. One of the most important was stuntman Gene LaBelle. The two trained together regularly, sharing techniques and philosophies from their respective disciplines. After The Green Hornet ended in 1967, Bruce wrote a heartfelt letter to William Dozier, thanking him for giving him his Hollywood star. That same year, he and Linda welcomed their second child, Shannon, further cementing a year of both personal and professional milestones. Yet, the fight with Wong Jack Man had left Bruce deeply reflective. He believed the bout had lasted longer than it should have, not due to his skill level, but because Wing Chun techniques weren't cutting it in real-world combat. He realized that traditional martial arts were too bound by form, too rigid for the kind of speed and adaptability street fights demanded. Determined to evolve, Bruce began creating his own system, one built on freedom of movement, efficiency, and practicality. He added running for endurance, stretching for flexibility, weight training for strength, and even drew from boxing and fencing to enhance his timing and footwork. What began as Junfan Gung Fu gradually transformed into Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. But even that name felt limiting to Bruce. He saw Jeet Kune Do not as a style, but as a philosophy, one that broke down barriers, discarded dogma, and emphasized personal expression over tradition. To him, naming it was merely a convenience. In truth, his real art had no name, no boundaries, only what worked. During this period, Bruce Lee began collaborating on a film called The Silent Flute, teaming up with two of his martial arts students, screenwriter Sterling Siliphant and actor James Coburn. In 1969, the trio ventured to India, hoping to shoot the movie. Despite their efforts, the project ultimately fell apart. Interestingly, the script would later be repurposed for the 1978 film Circle of Iron, which starred David Carradine. Undeterred by the setback, Bruce kept working steadily in small roles. That same year, he took on a minor part as a henchman in Marlowe, a film penned by Siliphant and led by James Garner as the iconic detective. He also served as the karate advisor for The Wrecking Crew, the fourth installment in the Matt Helms spy spoof series featuring Dean Martin. Around this time, Bruce also popped up in guest spots on TV series like Here Come the Brides and Blondie. In 1970, Bruce shifted behind the scenes as the fight choreographer for A Walk in the Spring Rain, written by Siliphant, and starring screen greats Ingrid Bergman and Anthony Quinn. The following year, he reunited with Siliphant on the TV series Longstreet, appearing in 4 episodes as martial arts instructor Lee Tsung, a mentor to the show's protagonist, Mike Longstreet, played by James Franciscus. What made Longstreet especially significant to Bruce was that it allowed him to infuse the show's dialogue with his own martial arts philosophy. Inspired by that creative freedom, he pitched a show of his own called The Warrior. Warner Brothers confirmed conversations had taken place, but Bruce claimed that both Warner and Paramount wanted to set the series in modern times, watering down his original vision of a historical Western centered on an Asian protagonist. Speculation has long swirled, backed by accounts from Bruce's wife, Linda Cadwell, that his idea was reworked without credit into the series Kung Fu. Warner Brothers, however, maintained that the concept was independently created by writer Ed Spielman and producer Howard Friedlander. In 1969, Bruce narrowly missed another major opportunity, the lead role of a Shaolin monk in a Western-themed show, which ultimately went to David Carradine, who had no martial arts background. Bruce spoke openly about the decision, saying, "From a business perspective, I understand their concerns. If the situation were reversed, if an American came to Hong Kong looking for a lead role, I might hesitate too." Though he tried to remain diplomatic, it was clear Bruce was frustrated. Hollywood seemed unwilling to give him a meaningful lead role. Encouraged by friends like producer Fred Weintraub, Bruce decided it was time to take matters into his own hands. He confided in Chuck Norris that he was heading back to Hong Kong to make a film that could open doors in the U.S. market. When Bruce arrived in Hong Kong, he was stunned to find that he was already a star. The Green Hornet had aired there under the title The Kato Show, and his performance had captivated audiences. Sensing an opportunity, Bruce signed a 2-film contract with Golden Harvest. His first leading role came in The Big Boss, which became a massive hit across Asia and catapulted him to stardom. He followed up with Fist of Fury in 1972, which shattered box office records set by his previous film. With his contract fulfilled, Bruce founded his own company, Concord Production Incorporated, giving him complete creative control over future projects. Through Concord, Bruce wrote, directed, starred in, and choreographed The Way of the Dragon. For the film's climactic battle, he invited Chuck Norris to play the villain, a part originally offered to karate champ Joe Louis. When Chuck asked who would win the on-screen duel, Bruce smirked and said, "I'm the star." It was a light-hearted moment, but Bruce had previously remarked that sparring with top fighters like Louis, Mike Stone, and Chuck Norris felt like child's play to him. The nearly 10-minute fight scene between Bruce and Chuck in The Way of the Dragon is now considered one of the most iconic in martial arts cinema. Chuck later reflected, "Working with Bruce was an incredible experience. It's an honor to be part of what many still call the greatest martial arts fight scene ever filmed." Fist of Fury had earned a staggering $100 million, but The Way of the Dragon surpassed it, raking in $130 million globally. By the end of 1972, Bruce had begun filming Game of Death, a project he was producing through Concord. He cast his former student and NBA legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to showcase a diverse and evolving fight sequence. But production came to a halt when Warner Brothers offered Bruce the lead in Enter the Dragon. That film became Bruce's breakout hit in the West, propelling him to international superstardom. Tragically, Bruce passed away just 6 days before the film's release on July 26, 1973. He was only 32. On May 10th of that year, Bruce collapsed at Golden Harvest Studios. He was rushed to Hong Kong Baptist Hospital, where doctors diagnosed cerebral edema, swelling of the brain. After treatment with mannitol, he appeared to recover and returned to work shortly after. According to Linda, Bruce met with producer Raymond Chow at 2 p.m. one day to discuss Game of Death. Afterward, he visited actress Betty Ting Pei. That evening, Bruce complained of a minor headache. Betty gave him Aquagesic, a painkiller containing aspirin and a tranquilizer called Meprobamate. Around 7:30 p.m., he lay down to rest and never woke up. When Bruce didn't show up for dinner, Raymond went to check on him and found him unresponsive. Despite immediate medical attention, Bruce was declared dead on arrival at Queen Elizabeth Hospital. An autopsy showed no external trauma, but his brain had swelled from 1,400 to 1,575 grams, a 13% increase. The only substance in his system was the painkiller. His death was officially ruled death by misadventure. Bruce was laid to rest at Lakeview Cemetery in Seattle, Washington. Chuck Norris, heartbroken over his friend's passing, remained close to Bruce's family. When Linda returned to the United States with their children, she settled near Chuck, who stepped in to offer his support. He became a comforting figure to Bruce's son, Brandon, and frequently spoke about Bruce's unmatched talent and vision. Years later, as rumors swirl suggesting Bruce had used performance-enhancing drugs, Chuck, then 83, came forward to defend his late friend. He explained that Bruce had once seriously injured his back while lifting weights, leading to a 3-week hospital stay. Doctors feared Bruce might never walk again. But with relentless determination, Bruce recovered in just 3 months, though he endured chronic pain ever after. Chuck revealed that Bruce had been prescribed long-term medication for his back, and it was likely that a reaction between that drug and Aquagesic caused the fatal brain swelling, what doctors term acute cerebral edema. Though speculation about his death continues, one truth stands firm. Bruce Lee forever changed the world of martial arts and film. Enter the Dragon would go on to gross more than $200 million, solidifying his status as an icon, one whose influence continues to resonate around the globe.
We're filming right now. We've got another 2 months to finish this season.
Did Mike Wolfe just walk away from American Pickers for good? At first, Mike Wolfe claimed he was simply taking a break from American Pickers, but behind that announcement might lie deeper reasons. Is it about money, a scandal, or something even darker? Today, we're digging into the truth behind his shocking decision, and what we found could change the way you view the show forever.
We'd love to. We just need the leads. So anybody out there, if you've got any leads for us, you can email us, you can call us.
Could Mike's break be financially motivated? After all, he's been in the picking business for nearly 4 decades. He's spent years crisscrossing America in search of rare antiques, what he fondly calls rusty gold, and reselling them in his 2 antique archaeology stores, one located in LeClaire, Iowa, and the other in Nashville, Tennessee. These shops don't just sell vintage finds. They also carry merchandise branded with the antique archaeology name. Prices vary wildly, from as little as $18 to as high as $900, depending on the item. Some customers have voiced frustration over the pricing, questioning why a vintage cat food sign, for instance, would carry such a steep tag. However, others have praised the shops for offering truly one-of-a-kind items, even if they agree the prices are high. Regardless of criticism, the business is booming. As of 2023, one store reportedly made $93,000 in annual sales, paid its debts on time, and received a low-risk credit score in a professional valuation. Beyond the income from his stores, Mike gained enormous success from American Pickers. But interestingly, the show almost didn't happen. Although Mike had been fascinated with picking since the age of 4, he didn't immediately pursue it as a career. Born in Joliet, Illinois, and raised by a single mother as the middle child of 3, Mike spent his childhood repairing bicycles he salvaged from his neighbor's trash. Rather than jumping straight into picking, Mike became a competitive bicycle racer. Eventually, he channeled that passion into opening 2 bike shops, yet something still felt missing, until he realized it was the adventure of picking that truly excited him. So he shifted gears and began traveling over 60,000 miles a year in a cargo van, hunting down unique vintage items. After some time on the road, Mike had a new idea. What if he turned his picking adventures into a TV show? He believed in the concept and began pitching it to various networks. He faced numerous rejections, but never gave up. Then, the History Channel saw potential. In 2010, the first episode aired and surpassed expectations, attracting 3.1 million viewers. It became the highest-rated debut for a new non-fiction show on cable between 2007 and 2010. By the end of its first season, the show drew around 5.44 million viewers weekly, especially among those aged 25 to 44. Alongside Mike were his longtime friend Danielle Colby, who worked at his shop, and co-host Frank Fritz, whose warm, bearded charm balanced the show's dynamic. Danielle had known Mike for a decade before the show was even conceived, making her inclusion feel natural. Their chemistry contributed to the show's success, turning it into cable TV's top-rated non-fiction newcomer of 2010. With fame came fortune. Mike earned approximately $500,000 per season, or about $25,000 per episode. With 26 seasons and 389 episodes under his belt, the earnings added up. Mike used that wealth to invest in his stores, purchase 13 properties, and launch other ventures such as restorations, a business that transforms vintage parts and fixtures into functional home and office furniture. He's also authored books including American Picker, Guide to Picking, 2011, and Kid Pickers, 2013, both of which brought in additional income. But not everything has been smooth sailing. At one point, Mike reportedly lost around $6 million. Could this financial hit be part of the reason he's stepping away from the show? It's worth noting that Mike isn't all about the money. He also created Kid Pickers, an online platform for children aged 7 to 13 to showcase their own antique finds. He regularly supports charities like St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, Operation Smile, the ASPCA, and various animal shelters. To many, Mike is seen as a generous and inspiring figure, but not everyone shares that view. Despite his public charm, some personal relationships have soured. In 2012, Mike married Jody Faith, and they welcomed a daughter, Charlie, the following year. After 8 years together, they separated in 2020, and by 2021, Jody filed for divorce. As part of the settlement, Mike was ordered to pay over $6 million. Still, his marital troubles weren't the only conflict in his life. Perhaps the most public rift, and one that may have prompted his decision to step back, was with Frank Fritz. For nearly a decade, the duo was the face of American Pickers, traveling the country in their Mercedes-Benz Sprinter or Ford Transit van. Their opposing interests helped keep the show fresh. Mike gravitated toward vintage motorcycles, Volkswagens, and bicycles, while Frank specialized in antique toys, oil cans, and Honda memorabilia. Together, they uncovered treasures hidden in barns, sheds, garages, and attics across the nation. Whether they were buying from hobbyists, serious collectors, or those who inherited estates, each had a knack for turning forgotten relics into profits. But as we'll soon explore, their partnership didn't end on the best of terms. And that fallout may be the real reason behind Mike Wolf's sudden break from American Pickers. Frank also kept his momentum going with his own website and personal shop, Frank Fritz Finds, based in Savannah, Illinois. The setup worked well. Both men had a natural charm on screen, and Frank always seemed to accept that Mike would be the bigger star, even if he was the one doing much of the heavy lifting. When they found a piece worth hauling, Mike never hesitated to get his hands dirty. Sadly, that magnetic chemistry between them is now a thing of the past. On October 1st, 2024, Frank passed away. This came 2 years after he suffered a stroke in July 2022, a health crisis that left him hospitalized for a time. Back then, Mike publicly asked fans to keep Frank in their prayers and said he was doing the same. But 2 years later, the complications from that stroke ultimately took Frank's life. Following his death, Mike penned a heartfelt eulogy, reflecting on their shared history and praising Frank for being as authentic off-camera as he was on. He said he was proud to have shared the screen with Frank and admitted he would miss him dearly. But while some fans appreciated the gesture, others weren't convinced it came from a place of sincerity. We'll explain why in a moment. 6 months after Frank's passing, Mike announced he would be stepping back from American Pickers. Could grief be the reason? If so, why didn't he take the break immediately after Frank died? And more puzzlingly, why did he bring in his younger brother Rob Wolf as a replacement? To understand this story, we have to go back to March 2020. Frank was dealing with intense back pain caused by years of constant lifting on the show. He underwent surgery and filmed a few episodes beforehand, but once those aired, he quietly disappeared from the series. Mike initially told viewers that Frank was simply recovering from surgery, but as months passed without his return, fans grew curious and demanded answers. The truth didn't surface until 2021. That's when Mike finally confirmed that Frank was no longer part of the show. However, Frank's account of what happened painted a different picture. According to him, he wasn't the one who left. He was pushed out. Even more shockingly, he claimed Mike had a hand in making sure he wouldn't be invited back. Frank explained that he hadn't heard from Mike at all after the surgery, not even a quick check-in. He suggested that Mike might have felt threatened by his rising popularity. As Frank lost weight and became more prominent, he felt like Mike saw him as a rival rather than a partner. He said, "Despite the show always putting Mike in the spotlight, it felt like Mike had a problem with me. Could it be that Mike was afraid of losing his place as the show's lead?" Frank didn't dive into specifics, but his comments hinted at long-standing tension behind the scenes. When Mike was asked about these allegations in 2021, he gave a vague response. He claimed he preferred to keep his personal relationships private and reiterated that he was praying for Frank. But he didn't directly address whether he had anything to do with Frank's removal, leaving fans with lingering doubts. Despite the controversy, the show's popularity didn't wane. Loyal viewers continued tuning in, even as the dynamic on-screen shifted. Today, Danielle Colby, Rob Wolf, and antiques expert Jersey John take turns traveling with Mike. Sometimes, they even venture out on their own while Mike is on a separate trip. This rotating crew suggests a more collaborative approach, something you wouldn't expect from a host obsessed with the spotlight. Still, in 2023, it became more apparent that Mike missed Frank. After Frank's stroke, Mike visited him during his recovery. There was even talk of Frank possibly returning to the show, but unfortunately, his health prevented that reunion from happening. And with his passing, the chance for a proper on-screen goodbye was lost forever. So if grief isn't the real reason for Mike's break, what is? Interestingly, Letitia has never appeared on American Pickers, and the couple has no plans to live together or get married anytime soon. During the red carpet premiere of their film Day of Reckoning, they made it clear. No engagement is on the horizon. They enjoy their independence and prefer things the way they are. If not a wedding, then what's pulling Mike away from the show? The real answer seems to lie in a new chapter of Mike's career. He's gearing up for a new History Channel series called History's Greatest Picks with Mike Wolfe. This fresh project, already greenlit for a season, will follow Mike as he hunts down legendary relics and untold stories from the past. Think of it as American Pickers, but on a much grander, more historical scale. Mike will guide viewers through rare discoveries and help uncover the secrets and value behind them. It's a natural extension of what he's always done, just with a broader scope and deeper dive into history. His decision to branch out was inspired in part by a film role offered by his friend, director Sean Silva. At first, Mike was hesitant to act, but he eventually joined the cast of Day of Reckoning, where he got to ride motorcycles and share scenes with actor Billy Zane, who even gave him acting tips. That experience seems to have sparked something new in Mike. While he isn't planning to move to Hollywood full-time, Mike has said he's open to exploring new creative ventures, whether in film, TV, or something else entirely. After 15 years of American Pickers and more than 30 years of picking, he's simply looking for a breath of fresh air. Still, the question remains, will he return to American Pickers after his break? Or will this new direction mark the end of his journey with the show? If Mike decides to walk away for good, it would leave big shoes to fill. Would the remaining cast members carry on, or would the show wrap up altogether? Only time will tell. But for now, fans should prepare for the possibility that Mike Wolfe may have picked his last treasure. Kris Kristofferson, a man whose life was filled with outstanding accomplishments, also faced personal battles and moments of deep hardship that cast a shadow on his final years.
I was called Straight Arrow by my friends back then because compared to them, I guess I was pretty responsible.
Despite his incredible success in both music and film, he endured difficult times.
Money, love, and time we had to spend.
He could have pursued a life as an Oxford professor or a helicopter pilot, but he chose a different path.
Flat in Baton Rouge, heading for a train.
That of an artist. Was this the right choice?
See the hunger rise in your eyes and it's urging me on.
To answer that, we need to take a closer look at the journey of Kris Kristofferson. Born on June 22, 1936 in Brownsville, Texas, Kristofferson was the son of Mary Ann and Lars Henry Kristofferson. His mother stayed at home to raise the children, while his father served as a military officer. Because of his father's career, Kris spent much of his youth moving around, constantly adjusting to new places and people. The Kristofferson household was grounded in strong traditional values and a disciplined upbringing. While there's little public information about his siblings, it's evident that Kris was raised in a tight-knit family that emphasized honor, duty, and structure. His early life, marked by constant relocation, gave him a wide view of American culture. Kris stood out from a young age, not just for his intelligence but also for his artistic leanings. After finishing high school, he attended Pomona College, where he majored in English literature. He was an exceptional student and also an athlete, playing on the college's rugby team. Driven by curiosity and ambition, he earned a prestigious Rhodes Scholarship and continued his studies at Oxford University. There, he focused on literature, but also began to nurture a growing love for songwriting and performance. Though he excelled in academia, Kristofferson's passion for music began to take center stage during his time in England. It was during these formative years that he started writing songs and exploring his artistic voice. The knowledge and experiences he gained during his studies provided a rich foundation for the music career he would later build. After Oxford, Kristofferson returned to the U.S. and chose to follow in his father's footsteps by joining the Army. Becoming a helicopter pilot, he took on challenging assignments and demonstrated leadership and bravery, eventually rising to the rank of captain. Though the military instilled in him discipline and structure, his heart remained in the arts. In his downtime, he wrote poetry and songs, pouring his experiences into his work. This tension between order and creative freedom would become a defining element in both his life and career. Leaving the army to pursue music was a huge leap of faith. It meant walking away from a stable future and diving into the unpredictable world of art. But Chris had the courage to follow his calling. That bold decision brought him to Nashville, Tennessee, America's music capital. Like many dreamers before him, he arrived with hope, but reality quickly set in. To make ends meet, Kristofferson worked a string of modesto jobs. He cleaned studios as a janitor, flew helicopters, and did whatever it took to survive. One of those jobs, janitor at Columbia Recording Studios, ironically placed him close to the industry he longed to break into. These gigs gave him an insider's look at the business and valuable proximity to the very world he wanted to be part of. During his off hours, Chris continued writing songs and trying to get noticed. Rejections came often, but he never gave up. He believed in the power of his words and the truth in his music. Eventually, that persistence paid off. His deeply emotional lyrics and honest songwriting began to catch the attention of others in the industry. One of the biggest breakthroughs came when Janis Joplin recorded his song, Me and Bobby McGee. The track became a major hit and solidified his reputation as a gifted lyricist. With this success, Kristofferson's career gained real momentum. He released his debut album, Kristofferson, which was both critically acclaimed and commercially successful. His music, raw, poetic, and introspective, resonated with fans and critics alike, setting him apart in the American folk and country scenes. Chris continued to build on that early success. He worked with some of the biggest names in music, from Johnny Cash to Willie Nelson. Alongside Cash, Nelson, and Waylon Jennings, he co-founded the legendary country supergroup, the Highwaymen, further expanding his influence in the industry. In addition to studio recordings, he became known for his compelling live performances, his passion and sincerity captivating audiences around the world. Never one to be confined to a single artistic outlet, Kristofferson ventured into acting. This wasn't just a side project. It was a natural extension of his creative spirit. Always eager to explore new forms of expression, he found in acting a fresh way to connect with audiences and tell stories. His success in music gave him the platform to break into film, and he soon proved he had the talent to succeed there too. His role in Cisco Pike marked his debut as a serious actor, and he quickly demonstrated that his artistry extended beyond music. Rather than rest on the achievements of his music career, Kristofferson embraced acting as a new challenge, further proof of his endless curiosity and commitment to creativity. After making his acting debut in Cisco Pike, Kris Kristofferson quickly carved out a notable film career, taking on a wide range of roles across movies and television that showcased his depth and adaptability as an actor. One of his most memorable performances came in A Star is Born, 1976, where he starred opposite Barbra Streisand. Playing the troubled folk rock musician John Norman Howard, Kristofferson received widespread praise for delivering a raw, emotionally layered portrayal that blurred the lines between his musical and acting talents. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Kristofferson appeared in a variety of standout films. He played a defiant trucker in Convoy, 1978, and took on a lead role in the ambitious Western epic Heaven's Gate, 1980, both performances further cementing his reputation for handling diverse genres, from gritty action to thoughtful drama. His talent extended beyond the big screen as well. Kristofferson also made notable appearances in television productions. In Freedom Road, 1979, he portrayed a former slave, and in the 1987 mini-series America, he took on a prominent role that added to his growing television resume. In the 1990s and 2000s, he remained active in film, taking on parts in major productions like Blade, 1998, where he played Abraham Whistler, a grizzled mentor to the titular vampire hunter. His ability to shift between roles and genres kept his career both vibrant and relevant over the decades. Kristofferson's personal life has been just as intricate as his career. His romantic relationship with legendary rocker Janis Joplin in the late 1960s became the subject of public fascination. The two shared a fiery, emotionally intense bond, rooted in their mutual love of music and strong-willed personalities. Their time together unfolded against the backdrop of a rapidly changing social landscape, as both were rising stars in the music world. Joplin, already a powerhouse voice in the rock scene, and Kristofferson, then emerging as a respected songwriter and performer, had a relationship fueled by passion but plagued by volatility. Unfortunately, their time together was also marked by substance abuse, a recurring struggle for both. The tragic end came in October 1970 when Joplin was found dead from a heroin overdose. Her passing deeply affected Kristofferson, who mourned her loss profoundly and carried her memory with him throughout his life. Kristofferson has been married 3 times. His first marriage to Fran Beer in the 1960s happened during the early days of his music career. Together, they had a daughter named Tracy. Though the marriage eventually ended, it was the first chapter in a series of significant personal milestones. In 1973, he married fellow singer-songwriter Rita Coolidge. At the time, both were experiencing peak moments in their careers. Their romantic and musical partnership led to several collaborations and even a Grammy Award. Their daughter, Casey Kristofferson, later followed in their musical footsteps. Despite their creative synergy, the marriage ended in 1980. 3 years later, in 1983, Kristofferson married Lisa Myers, a lawyer. Their enduring relationship brought a much-needed sense of stability and support to his life during a period of personal transformation. Together, they raised 5 children: Jesse Turner, Jody Ray, Johnny Robert, Kelly Marie, and Blake Cameron. Kristofferson has often credited his family with bringing him peace, joy, and continued inspiration throughout his career. In 1999, he underwent coronary bypass surgery, a critical procedure that helped safeguard his health and extend his life. The successful surgery marked an important turning point and allowed him to continue working in both music and film. Beyond entertainment, Kristofferson has long been involved in activism and social causes. Many of the themes present in his songs, justice, freedom, and protest, also defined his real-life views. He was an outspoken critic of the Vietnam War, participating in demonstrations and using his platform to oppose U.S. military policy. His activism extended to the civil rights movement, where he supported the fight for equality and denounced racial discrimination. Kristofferson also became involved with Farm Aid, supporting American farmers during times of economic hardship. He contributed by performing in benefit concerts and helping raise awareness for their struggles. In addition, he has shown a long-standing concern for the environment and the rights of Native American communities, using his fame to highlight issues related to conservation and indigenous rights. Over the years, Kristofferson has received numerous awards and accolades, both for his music and his film work. Multiple Grammy Awards reflect his songwriting brilliance and performance talent. These honors not only celebrate individual works, but also acknowledge his lasting impact on the country music genre and American music as a whole. Kris Kristofferson also earned acclaim in the film industry, taking home a Golden Globe for his performance in A Star is Born. This achievement not only honored his acting talent, but also highlighted his rare ability to transition seamlessly between different artistic fields. His inductions into both the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Songwriters Hall of Fame serve as career milestones, cementing his influence and long-lasting contributions to American culture and music. With a career as expansive as his, Kristofferson has likely accumulated substantial wealth. While estimates vary depending on the source and time frame, it's widely believed that his net worth runs into the millions. His earnings stem from a diverse range of sources: album sales, concert tours, film roles, songwriting royalties, and other creative ventures. His extensive catalog of music, combined with prominent roles in iconic films, ensured a steady stream of income throughout the years. Kristofferson's legacy stretches far beyond charts and box office numbers. As a musician, he redefined country music by infusing it with lyrical sophistication and poetic narratives rarely seen in mainstream tunes of his era. His ability to blend personal reflection with broader social messages inspired generations of artists to explore more meaningful themes in their own music. In film, Kristofferson brought depth and authenticity to the screen. His portrayals of layered, often conflicted characters resonated with audiences and critics alike. Collaborating with other notable figures in both music and cinema, he proved his adaptability and reinforced his reputation as a true creative force. Whether in a recording studio or on set, he consistently left his mark. His influence continues today, felt in the voices of contemporary artists, the sound of his timeless songs, and the quiet legacy of activism and empathy he's maintained throughout his life. In his later years, Kristofferson has chosen a quieter rhythm, prioritizing meaningful time with loved ones over constant professional commitments. After decades of rigorous touring and high-profile projects, he has opted for a slower pace, focusing on rest, family, and personal interests. He has always embraced a simple lifestyle, shunning the excesses often tied to fame. Whether in his living arrangements, daily routines, or leisure pursuits, Kristofferson favors a grounded, nature-connected existence. Though his public appearances have become less frequent, his love for music and storytelling endures. He continues to write and create, albeit more privately, keeping his artistic spirit alive. Health-wise, Kristofferson has faced challenges in recent years, particularly with memory loss, which has limited his ability to perform like he once did. Despite this, he's approached aging with grace, adjusting his life to preserve his health while staying creatively engaged. His dedication to social causes hasn't wavered either. Though he may no longer lead protests or appear at rallies, he still supports important issues, often from behind the scenes. Kristofferson's later life strikes a balance between retreat and quiet impact, his presence now more subtle, yet no less powerful. He remains a source of inspiration, embodying the integrity and passion that have defined his entire journey.
I would like to buy a drink for all the gentlemen in the house.
This must give you a lot of satisfaction, Bunny. It does.
Vintage Hollywood will forever be remembered for its timeless charm and legendary performances from icons whose influence continues to echo through the ages.
And old Tom's got you, Mark, Vic.
I was talking to Frank.
Like a bleeding
I was talking to Frank, wasn't I?
But behind the dazzling lights and red carpets lies a much darker truth.
Security officer, huh? Always screening everybody. Only who screens you?
Hollywood has never been a place for the weak, and for those unable to handle the pressures of fame, or its absence, many turn to the bottle for solace.
No, last night I called to tell you that I was coming, but there was no one at home.
In today's feature, we're revealing a list of 13 of the most notorious alcoholics in Hollywood history. Some of these names might surprise you, and tragically, a few of them didn't survive the grip of their addiction. Let's dive in. First on our list is English actor Oliver Reed. Known for his piercing blue eyes and powerful on-screen presence, Reed gained fame through films like The Trap, Bill Sikes, and Oliver. He was even ranked the 5th most popular box office star in 1971. His talent was undeniable, commanding, intense, and captivating. But being under the constant gaze of the public meant his private struggles weren't hidden for long. Reed was infamous for his drinking habits. Author Robert Sellers chronicled his story in the book Hellraisers, The Life and Inebriated Times of Richard Burton, Peter O'Toole, Richard Harris, and Oliver Reed, revealing how Reed once consumed a shocking 100 pints of beer in a single day. Sellers dubbed the 4 actors the greatest hellraisers to ever walk, stagger, or crawl into a pub, painting a vivid picture of just how deeply alcohol was woven into their lives. For Reed, the party never really stopped, even when it should have. During a break from filming Gladiator in 1999, he drank heavily at a bar in Valletta, Malta, reportedly downing half a bottle of whiskey, 12 rum shots, 8 pints of lager, and several cognacs. That same night, he got into an arm wrestling match with 5 young Navy sailors. Sadly, Reed collapsed shortly after and, despite being rushed to the hospital, was pronounced dead. His portrayal of Proximo in Gladiator earned him a posthumous BAFTA for Best Supporting Actor. Next is the charming yet troubled Australian star Errol Flynn. Behind his swashbuckling roles and irresistible charm was a man who succumbed to Hollywood's darker temptations: alcohol, women, and drugs. Flynn's social life revolved around drinking, which fueled his romances, friendships, and frequent bar fights. He was once even caught stealing a police badge. Flynn's circle of drinking companions included Hollywood royalty like John Barrymore, Ava Gardner, David Niven, Humphrey Bogart, and Frank Sinatra. He was especially fond of champagne and would carry French wine on travels to avoid going without. Toward the end of his life, vodka became his drink of choice, so much so that he was consuming an entire bottle daily. When banned from drinking on set, he resorted to injecting vodka into oranges just to keep the buzz going. Unsurprisingly, his health took a massive hit. His once handsome features became bloated, and on October 14, 1959, Flynn died of a heart attack at just 50 years old. During his autopsy, doctors were stunned that he had managed to live as long as he did, given the years of damage he had inflicted on his body. Another tragic figure was John Barrymore, a member of the illustrious Barrymore family. Alcohol didn't just affect him, it haunted his entire lineage. Many now only remember him as a washed-up drunk, but once he was considered one of the greatest actors of his generation. Barrymore's battle with alcohol began early. Raised by an alcoholic father and largely cared for by his grandmother, he began sneaking sips of her guests' leftover wine while still a child. When his grandmother passed away, his drinking escalated, and by age 14, he admitted to a doctor that he was already a full-fledged alcoholic. Despite his personal struggles, Barrymore's talent shone. He brought charm and wit to stage performances, even pulling off a famously inebriated version of Hamlet's soliloquy while seated, an act that was initially praised as a creative twist until Barrymore admitted he simply couldn't stand up. Later in life, his dependency on alcohol became so overwhelming that studios stopped casting him. He was often hired only to play drunks, as seen in his final film, Playmates, in 1941. Barrymore died on May 19, 1942, in the middle of a radio recording of Romeo and Juliet. He collapsed and was rushed to Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital, where he passed from liver cirrhosis, kidney failure, and complications from pneumonia. As heartbreaking as it may be, the stunning American actress Rita Hayworth, one of the brightest stars of Hollywood's golden era, also finds herself on this unfortunate list of Hollywood's worst alcoholics. Behind her radiant beauty and on-screen magnetism was a woman enduring deep personal struggles. From a young age, Hayworth was pushed into the world of dance, which eventually caught the attention of Fox Film Corporation executive Winfield Sheehan. That early exposure led her to a string of minor roles that slowly paved her way to stardom, but not without sacrifice. Due to her Spanish heritage, she was typecast into roles as the exotic dancer. In an effort to break free from this box, she altered her appearance, bleaching her hair and undergoing electrolysis to raise her hairline, aiming for a more American look. Her transformation worked, and soon she was one of the most in-demand actresses in Hollywood. Dubbed the Love Goddess by the press, she became the most iconic pin-up girl of World War II. Ironically, despite that title, her love life was far from glamorous. Time and again, she found herself in relationships with men who sought control or who exploited her vulnerabilities. Though she appeared successful, Hayworth lived a deeply lonely life. Misunderstood and isolated, she had no one she truly trusted. her second husband, filmmaker Orson Welles, noted signs of alcoholism during their marriage, but didn't initially believe it was a serious issue. Unfortunately, her daughter Yasmin Aga Khan witnessed firsthand the heartbreaking truth. Over time, Hayworth's drinking intensified, and she eventually suffered a breakdown that landed her in the hospital. For years, her erratic behavior was assumed to be the result of alcoholism. It wasn't until much later that her condition was correctly identified as Alzheimer's disease, a diagnosis made in 1980, years after her symptoms had begun. Her family had initially believed she was suffering from alcohol-related dementia. By the time the truth came out, Hayworth had already endured 2 decades of confusion and suffering. She passed away at age 68, her life cut short by complications from the disease. Next on the list is another infamous drinker, Richard Burton, the legendary Welsh actor known as much for his voice and talent as for his tempestuous personal life. In the 1950s, he was hailed as one of the greatest Shakespearean actors of his generation and was often spoken of as the heir to Laurence Olivier. Unfortunately, his promising career didn't quite reach those heights, derailed largely by his severe drinking habits. Burton's struggle with alcoholism followed him throughout adulthood. According to biographer Robert Sellers, Burton was known to consume up to 3 or 4 bottles of hard liquor each day. His drinking nearly killed him during the filming of The Klansman, where he had to be hospitalized in Santa Monica to be dried out. On set, many of his scenes were shot with him either sitting or lying down, as he could barely stand. He later confessed to a co-star that he had no memory of making the movie at all. In a desperate attempt to control his addiction, Burton even tried taking Antabuse, a drug designed to make drinking unbearable. Still, his battle with alcohol took its toll on every part of his life, including his volatile relationship with Elizabeth Taylor, which he believed was ultimately destroyed by his drinking. By the time he reached 41, Burton's health was in serious decline. He was limping in his mid-40s and struggled with a host of illnesses including cirrhosis, dermatitis, arthritis, and an enlarged kidney. His long war with alcohol ended in tragedy. He died at 58 from an intracerebral hemorrhage. His talent dimmed far too soon. Next on the list of notorious drinkers from Hollywood is William Claude Dukenfield, more famously known as W.C. Fields. This American actor, comedian, and writer gained fame first as a silent film juggler, later becoming known for his signature raspy voice and grandiose vocabulary. Ironically, although many of his characters were known to enjoy a drink, Fields himself didn't develop a real taste for alcohol until he began to feel the isolation brought on by constant travel. Eventually, he kept a supply in his dressing room and began drinking more regularly after stepping away from his juggling career. One of his most iconic roles as an on-screen drunk was Professor Henry R. Quayle in the 1933 comedy International House, where he played a beer-loving aviator, a role that eerily mirrored his own life later on. Fields often filmed scenes under the influence, yet his drunken performances somehow added a unique charm to his characters, endearing him further to audiences. Tragically, his career gradually declined, and he spent the last 22 months of his life at a sanitarium in California, passing away on Christmas Day at the age of 66. Another tragic story belongs to multi-award-winning actor William Holden, who perhaps had one of the most heartbreaking endings. With accolades such as an Academy Award for Best Actor and a Primetime Emmy under his belt, Holden was once at the top of Hollywood. However, by the 1960s, his career momentum slowed as new talent entered the scene, and he turned increasingly to alcohol. Holden had long been known in the industry for his drinking habits, yet he continued to pursue his passion for acting up until his death. On November 12, 1981, Holden suffered a fatal fall, cutting his head and bleeding out while intoxicated. The coroner's report stated that he had slipped on a rug in his apartment, a tragic and lonely end for a once brilliant star. Montgomery Clift, one of the most striking and soulful actors of his time, is also remembered for his struggles with alcohol. A 4-time Academy Award nominee and a pioneer of method acting, Clift was admired for his emotional depth on screen. Unfortunately, a devastating car accident changed everything. After attending a party at Elizabeth Taylor's house, Clift crashed on his way home and was found by Taylor herself, bleeding and trapped under his dashboard. Although he returned to acting just 2 months later, Clift never fully recovered. The pain from his injuries, coupled with the pressures of his changing appearance, drove him to drink and abuse drugs. His life ended prematurely at the age of 45, with a heart attack ultimately claiming him. However, it was clear his substance abuse had taken a serious toll. Another heartbreaking tale is that of Wizard of Oz star Judy Garland. Despite her success and fame, she endured immense personal suffering from a young age. Constant pressure from Hollywood executives led her to believe she wasn't attractive enough, forcing her into unhealthy habits and extreme makeovers. In response, she sought solace in alcohol and prescription drugs, forming a cycle of dependency that lasted her whole life. On June 22, 1969, Garland's new husband, Mickey Deans, found her unresponsive. She had passed away from an accidental barbiturate overdose at just 47 years old. A specialist later said she had been living on borrowed time due to her physical state. The gifted performer Jack Cassidy is another name that cannot be left out. A man of many talents, acting, singing, and directing, Cassidy earned a Tony Award, a Grammy, and several Emmy nominations. Yet beneath the surface, he struggled with both bipolar disorder and alcoholism. His son later shared concerns about his father's increasing dependence on alcohol. On December 11, 1976, Cassidy died in a horrific fire after falling asleep on his couch with a lit cigarette. The flames consumed his apartment, and his body was only identified through dental records and a family crest ring he wore. His remains were later cremated and scattered in the Pacific Ocean. Gail Russell, often called the Hedy Lamarr of Santa Monica, was another beauty who suffered a tragic end due to alcohol. Her stunning looks landed her a Paramount contract at 18, and she quickly found success. However, nervousness on set led her to try alcohol on the advice of a makeup artist, and that one sip became a crutch. By 1950, she was widely known for her drinking problem. Though she tried to quit at times, the cycle continued. At age 36, she died of liver damage caused by acute and chronic alcoholism. Her neighbors discovered her lifeless body beside an empty vodka bottle, with many more strewn around her apartment. Marie Prevost, a star of the silent film era, also met a sorrowful fate. Known for roles in The Marriage Circle, 3 Women, and Kiss Me Again, she found herself cast aside after Warner Brothers let her go. The deaths of her mother and the collapse of her marriage added to her depression. She began binge eating and drinking, which caused her to gain weight and lose roles. Her drinking eventually killed her. On January 21, 1937, at the age of 40, she died of acute alcoholism with only $300 to her name. Her passing led to the establishment of the Motion Picture and Television Country House and Hospital. Lastly, we have the legendary Jackie Gleason. A celebrated actor, comedian, and composer, Gleason was adored for his humor. Yet behind the scenes, his life was filled with pain. His father abandoned him, and his brother died young. Gleason never denied his love for alcohol. In fact, he once said, "I'm not an alcoholic, I'm a drunk." He frequently performed drunk, but his incredible talent always won out. Unfortunately, the drinking worsened over time, making him short-tempered and aggressive. He remained active in both music and film until his death on June 24, 1987. Ultimately, it was colon cancer that took his life at age 71.
Involving the deaths of legendary actor Gene Hackman and his wife.
The shocking death of actor Gene Hackman and his wife. They were discovered inside their home in Santa Fe on Wednesday after a neighbor called police.
There was a gentleman that was doing some pest control work, had gone to the Hackman residence. He noticed they weren't home.
The courtroom was gripped by silence as the verdict was announced.
Let's get you back into court now, where the publicist for Gene Hackman is describing how private the actor and his wife were.
Gene Hackman's daughter, once locked in a battle over her share of his immense fortune, now faces a future she never anticipated. Was she truly involved in the mysterious circumstances surrounding her father's death?
Seeing the moment, officers, at times with guns drawn, checked every room of the couple's Santa Fe, New Mexico home, making the grim discovery.
Or is this yet another tragic case of suspicion spinning wildly out of control? As new and disturbing evidence emerges and legal experts weigh in, the case takes an unsettling turn. The truth, it seems, is far more chilling than anyone could have predicted. Stick around, because what comes next will completely change how you see this story. Gene Hackman was a powerhouse of talent, known for his dedication to his craft and his unforgettable performances. But away from the spotlight and the accolades, Hackman struggled with something far more personal: his relationship with his children. While fans celebrated his on-screen presence, his family often felt the absence of the man behind the roles. Hackman had 3 children: Christopher, Elizabeth, and Leslie, all from his first marriage to Faye Maltese during the 1960s. Back then, he was still a struggling actor, trying to break into a tough and unforgiving industry. The family lived in a cramped New York apartment where daily life was marked by financial hardship. The apartment lacked basic amenities like hot water and heating, and it was Faye who carried the burden of raising the kids while Hackman chased stardom. When his big break came with Bonnie and Clyde in 1967, fame brought both fortune and distance. The more successful Hackman became, the less present he was in his family's life. Constantly away on film shoots, sometimes for months, he left his children without the steady presence of a father. The emotional gap widened over time, a rift he would later acknowledge in a 2011 interview with GQ. "I lost touch with my son in terms of advice early on," he admitted. "It was very tough to be gone for 3 months and then come home and start bossing him around." The weight of his career success loomed heavily over his children's lives. In a 2000 interview with the Irish Independent, Hackman reflected on how fame impacted his family. "It's tough being the child of a celebrity," he said. "I couldn't always be there when they were growing up. And living in California, my success was always hanging over them." Despite the accolades and wealth, Hackman carried deep guilt over the sacrifices his family had to make. His marriage to Faye eventually dissolved in 1986, the strain too great to overcome. His relationship with his son Christopher, in particular, suffered. At times, they drifted so far apart that communication nearly ceased altogether. It was a painful reality for the man who so often portrayed strong, commanding figures on screen. Still, Hackman wasn't one to shy away from accountability. In 1991, he married concert pianist Betsy Arakawa, who played a key role in encouraging him to repair the fractured ties with his children. With her support, he began to rebuild the bridges burned by years of distance and ambition. Reports suggest that their home became a welcoming space for healing and reconnection. By 2020, sources close to the family indicated that Hackman had significantly improved his relationship with his grown children and even his grandchildren. Though he couldn't recover the time lost, he found a sense of peace in the moments they were able to share. Tragedy struck in 2025. Hackman and Betsy were discovered deceased in their New Mexico home. Betsy had succumbed to hantavirus, while Hackman died of heart disease, with Alzheimer's listed as a contributing factor. The loss sent shockwaves through Hollywood, reminding fans of the fleeting nature of life, even for its most enduring stars. As condolences poured in, attention quickly turned to the puzzling details surrounding Hackman's death and the fate of his $80 million estate. Was everything as straightforward as it appeared, or were there hidden layers yet to be uncovered? Now, shocking new developments in the ongoing investigation into Hackman's death have come to light. Though initially attributed to natural causes, murmurs of foul play have begun to circulate. Authorities are now said to be conducting a deeper inquiry, one that includes reviewing medical files, phone records, and security footage. While no solid evidence has emerged so far, insiders claim the investigation is still very much active. One particularly startling twist involves Hackman's youngest daughter, Leslie. Her communications and phone activity are reportedly under scrutiny as part of the probe. Born in 1966, Leslie Ann Hackman has kept her life largely private, steering clear of the public spotlight. Very little is known about her current occupation or place of residence. Following her father's death, Leslie expressed disbelief and concern, saying, "I think I'm very anxious to find out what happened, and I just don't know how long they had been deceased." Authorities are reportedly examining her interactions with Hackman in the days leading up to his passing, searching for any inconsistencies or warning signs. While the investigation's exact scope remains under wraps, speculation about Leslie's involvement has only intensified the media frenzy. Was she simply caught in a web of tragic coincidence? Or is there more to her father's final days than meets the eye? Family, friends, and confidants have been quick to dismiss the rumors, labeling them a sensationalized attempt to spin a narrative out of grief. Yet others point to long-standing tension between Hackman and his children as a factor that cannot be ignored. Could those old emotional wounds have played a part in the somber final chapter of Gene Hackman's life? As forensic teams continue their work and authorities sift through every detail, the public waits, uneasy and intrigued. Hackman's legacy as a legendary actor is secure, but what's being uncovered about his final days could reshape how he's remembered. Adding another layer of complexity is Hackman's will, which has shocked not only the public, but also his own children. Hidden within the legal filings are revelations that further illuminate the difficult dynamics he had with his family. Though best known for his roles in The French Connection, Unforgiven, and The Royal Tenenbaums, Hackman quietly built a fortune through shrewd real estate investments as well as acting. But the true drama may be unfolding after his death, where personal wounds, legal questions, and family rifts converge in a story no Hollywood writer could have scripted. Gene Hackman's primary residence, a sprawling estate in Santa Fe, New Mexico, was where he lived with his wife, Betsy Arakawa, until their deaths. Valued in the millions, the estate was part of Hackman's meticulously managed financial portfolio, which also included multiple real estate properties and investment accounts. However, what has caught many off guard is the unexpected complexity of his will, raising questions about the future of his wealth and his relationship with his children. According to court filings from the First Judicial District Court of New Mexico, obtained by Business Insider, Hackman left his entire estate to his wife, Betsy Arakawa Hackman, as the successor trustee of the Gene Hackman Living Trust. The will, originally drafted in 2005, stated, "I give my entire estate to Betsy Arakawa Hackman as the successor trustee of the Gene Hackman Living Trust under trust agreement dated September 22, 1995, as amended and restated from time to time, most recently on the same date as this will." This essentially tasked her with overseeing the execution of the trust, the full details of which remained private unless legally challenged. Trust and estate attorney Lawrence D. Mandelker, who is not involved in the case, explained that this setup was simply a way of transferring assets into a trust, ensuring both privacy and discretion. Another estate attorney, Jason Coe, described it as a pour-over will, a method often used to keep estate matters out of public record. What surprised many, however, was how Hackman's 3 children from his previous marriage, Christopher Hackman, Elizabeth Jean Hackman, and Leslie Ann Allen, were only briefly mentioned in the will, with no specific inheritance or bequests named. Legal experts have noted that while the children might still be included in the trust, unless the documents are contested, those details will remain hidden. As Coe emphasized, the use of such a structure does not necessarily reflect whether the children were intended as beneficiaries. A particularly thorny complication emerged from Betsy Arakawa Hackman's own will, which included a highly specific clause. According to Business Insider, her will stipulated that if she died